Yeah, we're ready. Yeah. All right, we're live.
Hey!
Hey!
This is another episode of UFO Garage.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Joe, and this is where we talk about UFOs, aliens, and all things weird.
Baby. Yeah, dude.
What's up, man? Another Thursday.
Another Thursday. It's not as thirsty, but I am thirsty.
I am definitely thirsty.
It's not a thirsty Thursday, but it is a Thursday. And I don't know, man. I'm pretty stoked about our guest tonight. We've got Los Alamos Mike, and I made that name up, by the way. I was like, I emailed him. I was like, hey, what should I call you? He's like, it doesn't matter. So we're sticking with the Los Alamos Mike. So.
You don't have to call me Merle Haggard.
Hell yeah, dude. Classic.
Yeah, dude.
Classic.
That's awesome. Yeah, tonight's gonna be pretty sweet, and it's gonna be one of my favorites because I already know, because some of my favorite ones are the interviews that we do where we don't really know much about the person and we just kind of open it up like a book and go for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
those
dude.
are always the most interesting. So this is gonna be pretty dope.
Yeah, I'm excited. So yeah, why don't we bring on Micro Mike, dude? What's up, man?
Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. We're doing good. We're excited to have you on today, for sure.
Yeah,
we finally get to talk about stuff now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excited.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
So, dude, I'm so glad you reached out to us, man. Like, I was reading a bit of your email, your initial email, just saying hello, and I got like halfway down, and I'm like, oh, okay, I've got excited, and I have to reach out to this dude. And I read the rest of the email, and it's just like, all right, you've got me hooked. So some of the things are just, kind of blew my mind. And the fact that you were in Vietnam, I mean, I don't want to give a little bit of bio about you. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, I guess I'm basically a philosopher. I've spent my life in the search for truth and wisdom and unity in the cosmos. I was an average student. I went to Vietnam to get away from my dad. Later, I went to college when I got back because college seems pretty good compared to Vietnam. I got a few degrees. Was in the computer industry for a number of years. I invented computers, started in 1978. In 1981, I introduced a computer with 17 core processors. So I was a little ahead of my time. And then it came to a point where I wanted to study my philosophy. So I essentially gave up all the material world, and I took out on foot and walked around the country, ended up in Roswell, ended up in several places like that. I came to Los Alamos when someone offered to make a movie about a meteorite that I'll talk to you about a little bit, and ended up staying here. It's a wonderful place. My joke is that the scientist I have here that I can talk to, but after talking to scientists, it's a lot like hitting your head against the wall. It only feels good when you stop. And so I have the forest here to recover my sanity after I try to talk to them about different things. From the UFO thing, most people think you're crazy if you just mention the word UFO. You're automatically put in some category. And I challenge their science in a lot of areas, and they just don't like that.
Right. Yeah. So, man, so you mentioned that you were in Vietnam when you had your first sighting. Tell us about that. Like, what year was that?
Well, that was 1968. Really, to me, it goes back to the 1950s when I was in elementary school, and my teacher told us that the stars were suns like our very own, but they were just far away. Well, I immediately assumed if our star had a planet with people on it, that all the stars had planets with people on them. So from that moment on, I guess I believed in aliens. I don't know. It just seemed logical to a young child.
Absolutely.
So after I joined the Marine Corps to get away from my dad, he had made all the decisions for me in my whole life. And so I finally made my own decision to join the Marine Corps. And then, of course, they made the decisions for the next 4 years. So I really showed him by getting away. but
Oh yeah.
but anyway, I ended up in the Marine Corps band and in the 3rd Marine Division in Vietnam. We were stationed in Da Nang. It was the general's band, so he kept the band close to him. We didn't really do any fighting. We did do some patrols, but mostly we just stood guard duty. So on this particular night, we had gathered on top of the mountain overlooking Da Nang, and there was about 50 or 60 of us, and we're just standing there waiting to be assigned our guard stations. And somebody all of a sudden said, "What's that?" And we all looked up, and there's what we now know is called a cyclodiscus, the small round craft that the Zeta Reticuli use to travel from planet to planet and from the surface to planet to other things. And so it was hovering, I'd say, about 100 feet above us. And for 10 minutes it hovered there. And there was some kind of colored light that appeared around the edge of it, circling around it. It wasn't really a light, but there was colored light that was going around. And then after about 10 minutes, it just took off straight up. It was gone in a second, like it was on a big rubber band and somebody had yanked the other end of it. And so it was gone. And it's strange. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. None of us ever mentioned it. We never talked about it. All of us just turned about that time. We got our guard assignments. We all just turned and left and really forgot it. I mean, what do you think? What do you do when you're a young guy?
Yeah.
That's something doesn't exist.
That seems to be a common theme. You know, people that see these things, for some reason, they have this disinterested attitude afterwards. And, you know, that's a pretty common theme, man, you know?
Well, I was at the UFO Museum in Roswell for 4 or 5 months, talked to about 20,000 people. Almost everybody, somebody in every group had seen something. In every case, I'd ask them, "Well, have you ever told anybody?" And they said, "Oh, no," they'd think I was crazy. And I guess they felt secure in the UFO Museum. They could tell their stories.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's you're automatically crazy if you think there's a, alien life.
Yeah.
But before you bring in like society and culture, like how did you feel in the moment when you were watching this thing? I mean, you mentioned that you and your crew kind of forgot about it, turned around. Did you feel some sort of way when you were watching this thing for 10 minutes?
No, it was just purely, I can't say I thought or felt anything. It was just, an experience, and and then it was over. And what can you think about it at a young age? That was 50 years ago, more.
Yeah. Dude. And so
over time, you develop feelings about it, but it's only since lately that I've been thinking about it more.
Yeah. So you had mentioned it. You called it what was it? A cyclodisc?
A cyclodiscus, yeah.
Cyclodiscus, yeah. So one of the most interesting things to me about this whole thing is, we always talk about craft in the sky, whether it be like this ball of light or whether it be like a tic tac or a cigar or a disc, and
the
large
one thing, triangular craft is called a Triaculus.
That would make sense.
And there's some really interesting reports of what that thing does.
Yeah. One thing interesting that you did though was you put an actual species to a craft, which is one of my favorite things to think about. Yeah. Okay, so there's all these different kinds, right? Who's flying what? Which species has these certain types of craft or is it one species that has all the different craft? Like it kind of makes you wonder, I can explain technology. It all to you. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes.
What can I say to that? No.
Moving on.
Let's do that. I love that.
For the background. And for the background, we should probably talk about the Urantia Book for a minute. One of the things it says is that we are the the 5 trillionth, 342nd billionth, 482nd million, 332nd thousand, 666 inhabited planet in the grand universe. Friends, we're not alone.
How many times does it take
Almost 6
to
trillion
craft
inhabited
this thing?
planets right now.
Yeah. Before you go into more of the Urantia book, for those that don't know what the Urantia book is, can you explain a little bit about what this book is to people?
Yes, basically it's a revelation of God to man. But a true revelation concerns everything. It concerns science, cosmology, religion, philosophy, earth history, universe history. All these kind of things are covered. So it's a book written by celestial beings. It took over 70 years and 400 humans to bring it into print. It started around 1900 when Machiaventia Melchizedek decided to do this. So many things has gone wrong on our planet that we needed to know what's going on. And so basically, a man started in 1934 and 35, began speaking in his sleep, and a group of philosophers recorded it in the city of Chicago. His name is Winfred Kellogg. He was the cousin of the inventor of the cornflake. And so it took him till 1955 to print the first version of it, and it was printed in anticipation of the time of its need. It talks about us moving from a totally materialistic society to a spiritual society, and that the process was beginning, and at some point we would need this book to help us in our journey. So that's
we
part
don't
of this.
we don't know who really wrote. We know who published the book.
Well,
but
all the authors, all the authors are included, and they're celestial beings like the Melchizedeks, angels. If you want to know about the Garden of Eden, Solania wrote those sections. She was the angel in the garden who told Adam and Eve they'd defaulted. In the Bible, she's called the voice in the garden. So we have an exact account of these material sons and daughters, how they came to Earth, what their assignment was, how they went wrong, how it's affected Earth. We've had a terrible thing. Everything that could go wrong on our planet went wrong.
Oh,
so to update it, why we know so much is because the reason I think that it's time for it is a series of updates have appeared. And I've been in touch with a contact author. He's an anonymous person who's just a messenger who's gone through the same procedure. He's become so spiritual that he's essentially fused with God internally, and through that they can have him speak things. I suspect what happens is he speaks it in his sleep and records it. Then this poor guy was a high school dropout, knew nothing about publishing or anything or word processing, and he's managed to publish some books, although they're full of human mistakes. But in the latest update, which I can show you here, and it's really about the Lucifer rebellion and all the consequences and clarifying the concept of hell. And then right in the middle of all this are 3 papers about the aliens. There's one about Crystalia, which is the most valuable substance in the world or in the universe, and which is being mined on the nearby world called Mulcumbria. And then it has a section on the Zeta Reticuli. So the Zetas are the one who are transporting everybody. They're 3,000 years ahead of us in technology. They have a combined computer brain. They've somehow learned to insert an advanced computer. And so they're not only smarter than us, they have more brains than us. But they're very benevolent beings. They're good. They fought in the Lucifer rebellion on the side of Jesus. They're wonderful beings, and they came here in 1947 to establish peace between our worlds. Their government has mandated that they contact us, but we're a semi-civilized world. And in 1947, an experimental craft was studying the radiation in the atmosphere when it began being tracked by our U.S. military. And when it entered U.S. airspace, it was shot down near Roswell, and that's the incident that's so famous around the world. And so our government still won't admit that they exist or that they shot them down. But it appears to me, with all the sightings that's happening, and why the Rancho papers would have a section on the Zeta in it, makes me think that they're about to make contact again. That they want to bring us into the local system. They've united a bunch of worlds. They haul different races and worlds around and let people study. It's I don't know why we shot them down.
The original publication, did it have any reference to aliens, to extraterrestrials, or is it just the update that
yes, no, the original book talks about other life forms. One of the first paragraphs said that the planets were not created in vain. They were all made to be inhabited by intelligent creatures that could know God, that could love God and return that love at some point. So that's a cycle of eternity that God first loved us, then he creates us. We go through this thing, we learn to love him back, and it becomes a great cycle of eternity. So the very first thing it does mention is that, that we're not alone here. And then there's one whole paper that's on just inhabited worlds, the different types of life, the 1 brain, the 2 brain, and 3 brain species, the 1 gland, 2 gland, and 3 gland species. It tells us that the pituitary gland is the center of spiritual receptivity and imagination. It changes brain chemistry. And we all know that the cannabinoids now are the controllers of the pituitary gland. So you gain spiritual receptivity and imagination through the cannabinoids. So that's in the book, which is pretty darn interesting to me.
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty important passage to me.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like I told you, this book is pretty legit. So, Mike,
I've been a criminal for 50 years.
In the eyes
of the normal world, they kind of worship their philosophers. On our world, we throw them in jail if they don't have a card.
Right.
We're not a very advanced. And then there's one whole paper. Since our world is so bad, there's a whole paper on a nearby world and its government, how they run things. They run their whole country on 10%. It would just blow your mind to read. Humans just haven't thought of things like that the way, and what they do is sensible. They're actually running their world and making it better. So there's one whole paper that just describes another world. And then they mention in passing, when they mention non-air breathing species, that there's one we'd be interested because there's one in close proximity to us. And of course, now we know that's Proxima Centauri they're talking about, the nearest planet, nearest sun to us. And the planet that orbits it is called Mocumbria. And you would find that if you remember the Star Wars bar scene, apparently that's Mocumbria. There's a number of different species there from a number of different worlds.
That's cool.
The Zetas fly them around and their study, and it's a mining planet where they mine crystallia.
Wow. That's interesting. So, dude, we can go there, visit the cantina, and get some crystallia.
Dude. If we hadn't shot them down in 1947, we would probably be riding their craft to there now.
Mike,
certain scientists would be allowed to go.
Do you think we're going to be stupid enough to shoot them down again this time?
Well, we're still pretty stupid.
I agree. I mean,
but on the other hand, they weren't expecting it the first time, and we can't shoot them down again. There's so many reports of them, a cyclodiscus appearing over a missile site, and the whole site goes down for 3 or 4 days. They can't even get it back up. And I have a Russian friend, and he says the same thing's happening in Russia. They'll fly over. So I think the message is, hey, your nuclear weapons are, poo-poo. We are far beyond that.
They've shown us that.
Yeah, well, in the Lucifer Rebellion, it actually turned into a war, and Mocumbria got invaded by Satan's groups, and they tore up the Addisons, the cities, and the Zetas brought in 1 million people from another galaxy to fight against them, and they converted their mining materials into weapons and fought against them and repelled them from Mocumbria. So there was actually a Star Wars associated with the Lucifer Rebellion.
Interesting.
I love that name, Lucifer Rebellion. Lucifer Rebellion, dude.
Yeah.
That's
Lucifer, Rebellion.
Oh, got it. Okay, I shortened it. My bad.
Yeah, it's mentioned in our
So-
history, but now we know pretty much what happened. It was some very evil things, and this is where fake news come from. Satan took over a universe broadcast station and broadcast fake news to get people to join the rebellion.
Oh, no.
So anybody that's broadcasting lies, you know what side they're on.
Bro. That, like, I have so many questions. Like, I don't even want to ask them because we're gonna like kick off the internet. But here's the thing. This is why I find it so
This is all
fascinating.
truth, though. It's in the Rancho Book.
I mean,
I'm not making up anything.
it's not like this was published in, last year. This has been around since, you say, the 1900s.
It was first published in 1955, the Rancho Book.
It just
And
blows my
it's
mind.
still beyond our cosmology, beyond our science. It tells how an electron forms.
Yeah.
There's 3 forms of energy we've yet to even identify. And so, I mean, our scientists would do so much better if they would read the Urantia Book.
I heard about the Urantia Book probably about 8 years ago, and I've looked into it. I've dabbled in it here and there. I've definitely like looked through, and I found it extremely fascinating. The fact that like this book comes out, in the 50s, and it's got all this information, all this science, all this physics of stuff that we hadn't yet even discovered. It's so interesting.
As an example, a friend of mine here in Los Alamos is a scientist at the lab, but his hobby is he studies slime molds. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're the transition from the plant to the animal on our planet.
Oh.
And the Rancho Book, written in 1934, mentions that, and science didn't discover it until the 80s. We didn't know. And there's still so many things in the Rancho Book that our science, I probably know more of elementary physics than anybody on the planet, but they won't listen to me because I don't have the right degree or something.
Right. You don't have that piece of paper that says, I'm smart.
You got to have that piece of paper with that thing on it. It's got to be really expensive.
Yeah,
well, I got a couple of degrees and realized I didn't need the universities to learn.
Right. So you're the indoctrination centers.
Yeah, I really believe that most of the scientists get all their assumptions when they leave college and then never re-examine them. They just accept what they've been told and go on.
100% agree with that, man. There's something weird about that. I don't know if it's human nature or just, something that has just happened naturally about scientists or archaeology or physicists. They just, I don't know, man. I hate
the ego is a terrible thing. It makes everybody sick but the one who has it.
Right.
Dude,
yep.
That's
100%
like
true. It definitely does. It definitely does.
So I have a question, Mike. So you mentioned the Zeta Reticuli, and I know that's like a multiple star system. Is there any other life form that's mentioned in the book, or that maybe you know of with your contacts, that is visiting Earth?
Well, yes. When I was at the UFO museum, there was a woman came in every day. And the way it works at the UFO museum, if you've seen something more than somebody else, you're crazy. So if you see one fly over and someone else sees it land, they're crazy. If you see it land and they see somebody get out, they're crazy. and so this lady had been on their ship. She was a study subject. She'd been on them over and over. She had a call button that she could call them when she wanted to. And she was an Army brat, had a college degree. If you talked to her about anything else but UFOs, you'd just think she was a normal, brilliant person. But she was hated at the UFO museum. And I had numerous conversations with her, and I believe they were real. So the 3 creatures she knew was Frogman, she called him, although later she learned he was a lizard. And this is compatible with what the Urantia Book says. And then Catwoman, was one of them. And then the third one looked like us.
Hmm.
And almost every UFO story, says that some of the aliens look like us. So,
Yeah.
and that's compatible with the teachings of the Urantia Book too.
Really? So that's interesting. I mean, there's something that I've been kind of wrapping my head around lately, but the idea has been talked about. Me and Joe's have talked about it on the podcast before. This idea that maybe there's a species of maybe they're not extraterrestrial. Maybe they've just been here all. I think this has been in the news a lot with like George Knapp talking about it. But I think a lot of people have had this idea or maybe notion that maybe we've never been by ourselves on this planet and they look just like us, and maybe there's like a hub or missing continent somewhere.
I think the Rancho Book doesn't support that. Every planet is once life starts and it becomes human, it has to go to perfection, and so those are centered on each planet. And so there could be some people visiting here that look like us, but I don't think that's been the history of the planet. And the update says that the Zetas have been visiting us since the 12th century. They're actually responsible for the Bermuda Triangle. They placed several sensors on our planet to monitor our oceans and the seafarers. Two of them died out, but one of them kept going in the Bermuda Triangle, and they didn't intend for it to disrupt communications and shipping, but it apparently did. And they say it's now dying out, and we probably could never find it because it's just tiny but powerful. So wow. That's kind of interesting to me that apparently solves that problem.
Well, yeah, I love that. I love the Bermuda Triangle, man.
It solves that problem, but uncovers millions of questions. So many more.
That's what's great about science and the reality we've been giving. The Rancho Book shows the heavens are so vast and so complicated that no mortal will ever get bored. There'll always be something new to do, something new to learn, experience.
Yeah.
As long as you keep that interest and curiosity and inspiration alive in your brain, right? Like, I think there's a lot of people that are sleeping.
You got to smoke more weed and release the pineal gland, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you need to wake up. Earth is a training ground and it's a testing ground, and you should do good on it. You should, work to make progress. They hate stasis.
So once you become human, you were saying that the goal then is to reach this form of perfection or something like along those lines.
Yeah, everything we see in the night sky is called the evolutionary universes of space and time. There was a time when there was just God in the central universe before this was all started. But once it was started, the purpose was to start with an animal and evolve a mortal, and then through a succession of over 1 billion training worlds to bring them to perfection through time. When you go through all of that and you finally reach the central universe, the Paradise Isle, you'll, as a perfected mortal of time and space, you'll actually see God at that point. You'll stand before him and be able to worship him in person. And then you're basically trained to go out. At that point, you get to actually fly free. God will send you this universe or that universe, and you'll have the ability to transport yourself there to that. You'll go there to solve some problem that's happening. You may be administration, you may be philosophy, you may be any number of things, but there's just untold number of beings set to perfect everything. And so a planet goes through this process where the planet evolves, and again, everything is abnormal on our planet. The races, everything, the Lucifer rebellion, the default of Adam and Eve. On a normal world right now, we would already advance to one race, one language, one world government, and one religion, which would have been brought to us by Adam and Eve, and previous to that, the planetary prince. So we're probably 2,000 years behind where we should be on a normal planet. And the reason our planet got in trouble was because our planetary prince, his name is Caligastia, but we call him the devil. he defaulted with Lucifer, and he's still on our planet. He's got 873 bad midway angels that are all causing havoc around the world. They're sitting on the shoulders of government leaders and big business and the networks, and they whisper in their ear, and they can't make them do anything. But if a person's inclined to it, then they get that action done. And we see that evil happening everywhere. They're trying to keep the status quo, the riches at the top, the poor on the bottom. Who knows why, and why that would thrill them, but that's kind of what's happening. So it's going to be a long struggle for us. Probably another 1,000 years before our world enters what's called light and life, where cooperation takes over from competition, where we work together to make things better, where we form the brotherhood of man, where we care about each other. More time is available for art and things that are valuable rather than just working. The first stage of light and life, you only have to work 3 hours a day to meet your needs to society. I mean, just think about that. That would be worth going to. So it will come on our planet at some point, but it's going to be a ways. But the Urantia Book is an answer book. And so if everybody would read the Rancho Book, then we would have the answers to solve our earthly problems and make this a much better place.
And so I don't know if we said this, but Urantia, right? It means the earth, right? That's the name that was given. Yeah.
In the language of the universe of Jesus, it's called Nebadon as a universe. The language is called Satvula, and the Tia always means promise of. And a Uran is a valuable blue gem, more valuable than diamonds. And there's also on the edge of paradise, there's a blue gem mountain called Mount Uran. And so Urantia means blue gem of promise. We are in the nearest 1,000 planets. Apparently, we have the best environment for raising life. It's just near perfect here for making life. And so it's a blue gem of promise, although that promise got waylaid somewhat.
I like
but
that.
It's not over
I
yet.
like that. So where is, I guess, like in these, where is, as like, you know, we were saying the earth is kind of like this training ground, and then you move on to another, you know, section of this. Where is earth in the line of reaching the top? Are we at the very beginning, or, you know, our universe, you know, because I believe.
Go ahead.
Isn't there like seven separate universes, and then one, like, I guess, overseeing universe, I guess is how you would explain it. I'm not sure, but is that correct?
There's 7 super universes.
Super universes,
which are made up of what's called local universes.
Mm-hmm.
So the organization of things is 1,000 planets makes a local system. 100 systems makes a constellation. 100 constellations makes a local universe. And I think it's 1,000 make a super universe.
Mm.
And so Jesus is a creator of what's considered a fairly new universe. There's only one universe further away from God than we are. We're on the outskirts of everything. Even within the universe of Jesus, there's only one system further out than us. So physically, we're the furthest separated from the central universe of any of the worlds.
So we got a long way to go.
Well, all your transport is done by angels, and actually, where you end up is let me explain the whole process. They've really given us a lot of information. In every human brain is a piece of crystallia. It's the absolute substance of paradise, and paradise itself is called absolutum. But when it's time conditioned in space, it becomes crystallia. It exists in 10 dimensions. It's a source of all light, matter, and gravity. And in your brain is a piece of crystallia that's storing in that memory your life history. You've heard of people saying they see their life flash before their eyes whenever they die. Well, that's the God within them reading their life thing to go write it in the book of life. So what happens when you die then is your angel then picks up this Crystallia, which is your soul trust, and transports it to heaven. And the first heaven, as it's called, is the mansion worlds. I've calculated it probably about 50 light years away. Angels travel at 3 times the speed of light. So that means that you'd wake up normally 50 years later, although you wouldn't experience anything. So the mansion worlds, all of the worlds of the government are artificial worlds. So the main mansion world is 100 times larger than Earth. It has the satellites around it that are 10 times larger than Earth. And then around each of those is a satellite about the size of Earth. So around one of those satellites of the satellites is the first mansion world where you'll wake up. And the God within will reunite with the soul trust brought by the angel. And under the influence of a number of beings, the life carriers, the archangels of the resurrection, things, you're given a new body and your brain is brought back. You remember everything of importance. You remember all of your relationships, everything that's happened. That's yours through eternity. So that's how you arrive on the first mansion world. And then if you've already learned the lessons of Mansion World 1, you spend 10 days there and rest and meeting your people that you've known before. And then if you've already passed those tests, then you move on to Mansion World 2. There's 7 mansion worlds. You land on whichever one you need to learn the lessons of.
So this is the idea of reincarnation, but like on a exponential level.
Well, reincarnation is really saying the same person comes back again as something else.
So it is different. It's much different.
Well, you're the same person, but you've never had another. You've had one life. There's no such thing as multiple lives, although there is one exception to that rule. Everything in heaven has an exception to the rule. So then you proceed through those, and once you've passed all those tests, then you move from the system up to the constellation. There's another couple of hundred training worlds there, and then you move to the capital of Jesus' universe. It's called Salvington, and you learn the lessons there. And at that point, you've been through 270 body changes, each one slightly more spiritual and less physical. And then when you leave the universe of Jesus, you're a baby spirit. You no longer have a material being. So it's a transition through a few thousand years.
These light beings that are often depicted, some people call them angels, some people call them extraterrestrials or ultra dimensionals. Could this maybe, us humans, we just like to come up with names for stuff. Like, doesn't mean that that's an angel. It could be all 3 of those options.
Well,
right?
mostly you don't see an angel. Although the night before my son died, what's called a brilliant evening star visited me when I was in Socorro. And it's just a ball of light about 5 inches in diameter that I was sitting in my tent watching the stars. It just came out of the heavens in a great arc, came right through my tent wall, gave me time to set up and look at it face to face, and then went off the other way. And I knew I was being offered mercy about something. The next morning, my son died. And so... So normally they don't make themselves visible. They're not normally visible, but there are special circumstances. But there was so much default in our world that there's a bunch of evil spirits that can do things. And these midway angels I talked about are closer to human than any other angels, and they're the ones that can most manipulate physical reality to make things appear to be miracles or stuff like that. And so they do apparently fool a lot of people. And there's apparently a lot of spirits loose that they can't take over a mind, but they can sure suggest things to you. They can sit on your shoulder and talk to you.
So Jesus, that he fits in as like, what is he, like a watcher or an overseer of this particular constellation?
Well, he's what's called a creator son of God. There's an order of it's called the descending orders of God. In the beginning was God, and then he decided he wanted a company, I guess is a way to say it, and he made the Holy Spirit and the eternal Son. Jesus is not the eternal Son, but the eternal Son and God made Jesus. He's one of over 700,000 creator sons, each one creating a universe. The universe age we're in now will have 700,000 universes.
Wow.
Before we start the next universe age. So Jesus is responsible for the actual creation of the entire universe of 10 million inhabited worlds. The first inspector came to this region of space 987 billion years ago to see if it was suitable for making a universe. He reported back that it was, and 87 billion years later, a permit was issued. If you think things are slow on Earth,
Yeah.
Talk about bureaucracy, man.
yeah, well, heaven is full of it.
Oh man.
So you said an agent, or I can't remember.
They're like the Vogons.
Well, there's just so many beings that of which you're unaware. That
Yeah.
humans just don't know the content of the heavens. It's just there's beings that do everything. There's beings that through their being control energy. They materialize it. They do all kinds of things. They're power directors. They can make energy flow through them. They just think about it.
Do you think, so you mentioned like a scout, like visiting different parts of the universe or maybe a new universe. Do you think, did you know about Amumua? Do you know about that? Amumua,
No.
the large, I guess, celestial, some people think it was just a large rock that came scarily close to Earth.
Well, that's probably, that's true. Our solar system was formed in a way that only represents about 1 or 2% of the solar systems. Most of the time, the solar system forms because there's a lot of material around the sun and it accretes into planets. But ours was a lone sun just traveling its own path 6 billion years ago. And what happened is, I don't know if I can remember the name of it. It'll come to you in a minute. But there was the Angola system, this large dark body with a number of planets around it, came close to us. At that point, our sun was what's called a pulsar. Which we know that now because of the monthly rhythms of the sun. It still has some rhythms. So it was a pulsar, and it was extending and retracting and extending and retracting. And one of these extensions matched up just about perfectly with when the large cold body was nearest to it. And so that reaction caused a bunch of material to be pulled out of the sun, enough to make all the planets and the asteroids. The asteroids came out of the back end, and the planets came out of the front end. It was shaped kind of like this. So the big planets formed out of the big material, and the little planets formed on both ends. But interesting enough, the proof of all of this is that we extracted 3 of those planets from that system. So everything else in our solar system is 5.5 billion years old. But those particular planets, if we would go to them, we would find they was much older. One of them is called Maki Maki. It's the latest 3 little planetoids that were discovered.
Yeah, there was a new one that's shaped like this because it moves, it spins so fast that the material has been spread.
Well, one way we know that these came from another system is they're out of the plane of the orbit. Everything that came out, say, was in the same plane, but these are in a different plane because they was affected by another gravitational system. And so if we would send a probe and measure the age of it, it would prove the Urantia Book, prove the formation. And our poor scientists can't figure it out. They can't figure out why Jupiter still has a liquid core. They thought it would be made up of a bunch of cold things that came together. But Rancho Book says that that Jupiter and Saturn both were small suns for a period of time because they was made of hot material from the sun. And that they've just never cooled. That's why they don't have a solid interior. And our scientists can't figure that out. There's another thing.
Super
they
cool.
Just read yeah, well, it explains so many things like that.
It makes me think about there's a lot of ideas that Saturn was at one point a sun. Like that's supposed to be
that's
this
true. It was a small sun.
Yeah, like the signifier of like the evil. Like was it Lucifer's son or something, like the morning star or something like that. Was
Yeah,
it
well,
Saturn?
those things are all messed up.
So according to the
Get
book,
things right.
the according to the book of Urantia, like that's like totally not correct, is it?
Well, I
or
don't know.
or is it like it sounds like maybe you have like a source that's like no, that's totally. I don't know. I just love the idea. It's
Well, the
interesting.
problem is that humans just they like a good story. They like a myth. And so everything that even may have some reality to it gets assigned to something else. The problem with the Bible all through time is that God has revealed himself to people, but they always took it and mixed it with what they had before. Even the Judeo-Christian religion is Jesus came to give a whole brand new vision of God. But what we do, we mixed it with the Jews who didn't accept Jesus. And so now so instead of accepting the new religion he taught us, we took an old one and mixed it with it.
Yeah.
And made the church, which was never the teachings of Jesus. He taught that God lives within you. You find God by going inward. And once you find God, you realize he's your father, and a loving father. And you realize he's the loving father of your neighbor. And so you love your neighbor because he's a brother. And that's what Jesus taught. He never taught the church.
Yeah, I don't remember anything about like, hey, let's like make people pay money to come to a building that we made.
If anything, he destroyed temples.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, Paul changed the message. He thought it would be more acceptable to the Jews, but he made it less acceptable to the rest of the world. And so Peter kept the message up longer, and actually the disciples of John the Baptist taught the true message longer than anybody. But it faded out with the teaching of Paul. It became the church, and then we all know now there's 500 variations of the Christian church.
Right.
And the Rancho Book says they are the biggest threat to the coming brotherhood of man because they institutionalize the truth. Mm-hmm. You can't write it down. The truth is a living thing. It must be every day growing within you, and you must show by your life that you live the truth. And so anytime you write it down and it becomes stasis, it's considered evil. If God's going to protect everything that we see, then you've got to progress. You can't stay where you are. You've got to keep progressing.
Right.
I mean, that notion itself reflects the nature of the universe and the cosmos itself, right? Like nothing's staying still. Everything's in motion, And
like, everything is in order. That's what I can't understand. Our scientists think that entropy is increasing, that everything is moving to disorder. And that's one of the things that I argued with them long ago. Let's look at the sky. Everything's in order. And it just keeps getting more ordered. And that's what the Rancho Book says. It's all about bringing order to everything.
Ooh, dude, I love this, man. This is great. It's so fascinating.
It's definitely pretty interesting. It's a very fresh take, like especially like with modern society, and it's definitely starting to shy away from like these religious ideas and things like that. People are more like, well, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious, right? And this Urantia book kind of as I would read through it or, listen to stuff and watch videos and stuff, I would always think to myself, this is a very palatable way to accept God, right? Because most people are like, oh, I don't even talk about God. Like, that's just, it's silly, it's nonsense. But then whenever you actually start to put some physics and science to it, and it starts to explain all this stuff, you're like, wow, that actually makes sense. People are still basing the idea of God off of this old ancient text and book, which may have, a few truths to it, but this new version was very digestible. It didn't give you that cringy feeling, Well,
it answers your questions instead of making more questions.
Yes.
The entire Bible is covered in there. It tells you what all was true, what was not true, how it evolved over time, the different myths and stuff, the myth of the Virgin Mary. The original verse said a maiden shall bear a son, not a virgin shall bear a son. Joseph and Mary were married 13 months when Jesus was born. It was not a virgin birth.
Yeah, definitely not. She was playing hard to get, dude. She was like, you know what?
I'm gonna make you wait.
We're gonna make this relationship a slow burn.
No, actually, she was the aggressor in the relationship. Joseph came over to her father's house to do some work one day, and she brought him a glass of water at lunch, and that was the beginning of their love for each
Ooh.
other.
That's how it happens. That's how it
Yeah.
happened to me in high school.
Yeah.
Water, just
Dude.
it really sets things, especially if you're in the desert.
It was cherry Kool-Aid for me, man.
Well, I've been married 4 times. I don't think I've got the right water or something.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Sure.
man. That Urantia book's super interesting.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're so knowledgeable about it, man. I could pick your brain for hours about it, man.
Can you confirm this for me? It may just be something that was made up, but I heard that one of the I guess the original copy maybe was left in a locker or something with some gold. Is that true or is that a myth?
No, I think that's a myth.
It's a myth. Okay.
Yeah, the foundation, the Rancho Foundation, is still in existence. They're the holders of the original printing plates, and the original printing plates are in a safety deposit box. And so what's happened is after 21 years, they failed to renew the copyright on it. And another group formed called the Fellowship, the Rancho Fellowship. And they decided they wanted to print it, and the foundation sued them. But it was ruled public domain, so anybody can print it or reproduce it in any way without having to ask anybody. So, it's printed by 2 different groups right now.
Interesting.
Is it all the same though? Did one group
Yes,
change?
the two have got together, and there's actually about a page and a half of corrections that have been made since 1955.
Oh,
They're
okay,
all
cool.
human corrections of punctuation, that kind of thing. There's no substantial. Matter of fact, I can't find a mistake in the book. I've read it many times. So this, probably can't see it, but at the last there's a appendix 1, and you see there's
Okay.
part of the list
Okay.
and the second page.
Oh wow.
And
Wow.
this one of them is they change like a comma or they spell a word. Yeah, here's one where hesitate was spelled HESITATE, and they changed it to HESITATE.
Wow.
And so that's the only corrections that have been made. And then if you're really interested, this is the first update that appeared, and it's no longer available in print. It's still available as a download. But it tells how the process was formed, how they did it, how they contact people, how many people was involved, the time frame. And the angels did have a little bit of work in the end there. They took the original notes and stuff and took them away, and they had to make a few corrections that the Earth people probably didn't know about. But
that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
So they told us now to help us understand where the book come from and alleviate concerns about it.
Yeah. Can you imagine if they made like a corrections book on like the current Bible? Like the corrections book would be like a whole nother
another book.
It'd be bigger than the Bible itself.
Like,
we got to make a lot of corrections.
So much.
This is going to take us at least 100 years.
It would either be like 12 books of corrections, or just like, hey, just start over, and it would be like this big. Like, hey, let's just cut out all the King James bull. I don't know. I'm not trying to be a heretic here, but
cut out all the nonsense.
Yeah.
Well, the Rancho book was written in English, so there's no translation problem.
Interesting. Yeah, that was one of the questions in the chat. People, I guess Lewis was curious about maybe where the Sumerians might fit in. Does the book maybe say anything about that?
Yes, I recommend of the 2 printers that you get this one, the one I have, because it has a subject index in it. And so
cool.
You can literally go look up Sumerians in it, and it covers that subject.
Dude, I didn't even know they knew about the Sumerians in the 1950s. Like, what? Like, I found out
we
about, like,
didn't. We didn't, and we still don't know about Adam and Eve and a whole bunch of things. We don't know about the planetary prince. 500,000 years ago, the planetary prince arrived. And for 300,000 years, everything went well. There was some remarkable things.
Yeah.
And then Adam and Eve arrived about 38,000 years ago. And at that time, there was what's called a fandor, which is a large bird related to the ostrich that flew and could fly a person 50 or 100 miles in a day. There were fandor handlers at that time,
awesome.
and Adam and Eve used the fandor to examine the Garden of Eden. When you loved it. And in heaven, there's transport birds. If you wanna just go 200 miles an hour, you can take a transport bird instead of a cyclodiscus, I guess, or whatever else they use.
One of my favorite movies is Avatar, and the best scene is when he's like taming that like pterodactyl dragon type thing. Oh my God. Like, that's my ultimate dream scenario, is that you have, it's like having a horse, but you're flying around.
It had a personality that crossed between a horse and a dog.
Oh,
dogs love to do things. They love to work with things.
Dude,
so you'll get to ride them on the Constellation. I know it tells that they've got carrier birds as one of the methods of transportation. So you'll get to experience that.
Oh my gosh. I was going to ask, is this already happened, or does time not exist and we just get popped into different timelines and I can still fly this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's already happened on our planet, but
so in the next life, in the next life,
you'll be able to experience that.
All right.
In the universe of Jesus, you're guaranteed to satiate any things that you had on earth that you didn't get done, that you wanted to do. If you still want to do it in heaven, if it's art or whatever, you're guaranteed 1,000 years of art or 1,000 years of music or whatever it is that you are. So you'll get to do all those things. Also, the other update is You Are Blues. And they tell us how the angel of blues brought us the blues.
What?
There's a man called Tiger Wolf, who was essentially born on a slave ship coming over. Gypsies took him over. He had the worst life you can imagine, but there was an angel of blues with him. He invented the steel guitar, the capo, the drum set, the blues progression, the blues notes. Everything that we have in the blues came from him. All the great artists of the day have him to thank for this.
Wow.
And they gave it to us. They gave it to us to unite us, to give us something that brought us together.
That's awesome.
Look at Woodstock.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Good example.
Dude. So I've always thought it was because Robert Johnson discovered the pick of destiny. Thus spawning the blues, dude. Yeah, that's what I always thought. Yeah, well,
there's a lot of people in Hattiesburg that are going to be angry right now. The home of the blues, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are disappointed. But it's even deeper than that, because if you read into everything, music is apparently the language of heaven, and it's the way that essentially God in the central universe communicates with beings with the communication circuit is all done apparently through music. And then when you get to heaven, it's all music. Everything is done. And so blues is 1/7 of it. There's 7 types of music apparently that make up what is needed to express an idea, to get all the feelings, all the emotions, everything that goes with it. That idea can be completed through these 7 aspects of music. One of them is the blues, which I assume tells us about emotions, because that's pretty much what it's about. Ooh. And so when you get to heaven, you'll sing in harmony. Apparently, it won't be no more language. So music is far more important than maybe we give it credit for on our planet.
Yeah. Dude, that's so like in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when they play the musics and like notes and stuff.
I did see that movie.
Yeah.
That's about the last one I've seen. But
it's pretty interesting that I'm just making my own correlation here, but using music as a form of communication with a higher consciousness or a higher. Concept. Yeah, definitely. Definitely, because even like the Bible, right? It even says in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was the Lord, right? So the Word itself is a sound, it's a frequency, it's a vibration, and that's what spoke everything into existence. Is this noise, this vibration,
dude? There's got to be something to that, man. Frequency, vibration. Everything's moving. There's more space in between atoms and molecules.
Don John Bovey says, "What about Limp Bizkit, though?"
Yeah, I know. I saw that. I was about to put that up, dude. Joe's a big Limp Bizkit fan, dude.
He was probably part of the Luciferian regime.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Mike. So we're at our hour mark, and we're trying something new, guys. If you guys are fans of the show, we're gonna do like a little break, and I'm thinking maybe like a 2-minute thing. I'm gonna zoom in on Nibbler's face for a second, just in case anybody has to pee or get a refill on their beer or whatever. And then we'll just hop back into it. The next thing I want to ask you, Mike, is about the meteor that you found, and we're good on time, right? Is that all right?
Yeah, I'm retired, so I'll go as long as you want.
Awesome.
And you realize all of this is science fiction from the 50s. I would read about this in a science fiction book that you could talk to somebody and see them, and all this would be happening. And so,
man.
The angels of progress are also sitting on people's shoulders, and they're guiding our scientists and stuff so that we learn faster.
That's
so
awesome.
We're not alone.
We're living in science fiction right now. I mean, 10 years ago or 70 years ago, would you ever think that the government would come out and say that aliens are real and UFOs are real? Well, I guess they're not even saying that. They're saying UAPs are real. It's the new branding, man. New marketing.
I sent a copy of this book to the Pentagon, and they sent it back.
Did they at least sign it, or no? They didn't.
No,
sign it?
I sent it. I said, the UFO section and stuff. Here's your answers, and they sent it back, so we could not find this undeliverable or something like that.
Oh my gosh!
It's like, what are they supposed to find? Like, this is supposed to be
here's the answer.
Yeah. They're like, we work at the Pentagon. We don't read stuff.
We don't read.
We just kind of gloss over and stamp things.
Well, there's no courage. People are afraid to make a decision, to say anything. The whole report that came out said, well, there's an other category. Well, we already knew that.
Right, right.
And then they only covered things from the year 2000. Well, what about all the way back to 47 and all the different things we've seen,
Oh, I know.
There was a Triaculus that went over America, all the southern states, several years ago, and hundreds of people saw it. And apparently big enough to land a 747 on the back of it. The night sky went dark when it went by.
We talking about maybe the Phoenix Lights sighting.
Yeah. And then the military shot off some flares to say, "Oh, that's what it was."
Yeah,
that was tracked all the way from California by the UFO people.
Yeah, I recently found out
in real time.
Really, damn. I recently found out that that's what the military did, was shoot flares in the sky after the craft had fled the scene. That was new information to me. So that's
the way it worked.
Yeah, I'll be right back, guys.
They just camouflage it.
Yeah. Wow. Dude, it's so crazy. They're like, you see this thing fly over, and then the military's like, well, what do we do? I don't know. Shoot some flares up in the sky. I don't know what to do.
Well, they blame the other one on a weather balloon.
Yeah.
Which actually wasn't invented till after that.
Yeah. They're like, man, we're paying these people. It's crazy.
I spent 5 months at the Roswell UFO Museum. I've studied all the material.
That's cool.
People. And I've actually, I met everybody that was still alive that was involved in the original incident.
No way.
Yeah. I think there was 3 of them. I can't remember all their names, but I talked to all of them.
What was their, what were their stories like? I bet that was pretty
it's
incredible.
The ones that are pretty public, Their stories are all pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And then one interesting thing is one day this guy came to my booth where I was showing my meteorite, and he kind of hem-hawed around a little bit, and then he began talking to me, and we had quite a long conversation. He had never believed in any of this. He'd never been to the UFO museum before, but his friend was the son of the guy who found it. He had seen the cigar box full of the parts. His friend told him the men in black had come and got all of that, but he still didn't believe it. But then he was out on his ranch near Roswell a few days before he saw me, and he saw a cyclodiscus. He and his son and his father all watched a cyclodiscus fly over their ranch. So he came in and told me his story about knowing the sun and everything, and it all matched up with what they were saying. But he said the site where everybody goes is the wrong place, that the site where it landed is different than what people know about, or what has been considered the right site now. So it might be interesting to go meet him again and get him to take us to the real site.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. That would be pretty awesome. I would love to go out there, dude.
I remember his last name was Walker.
Walter? Walker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to go out there. Like with somebody who actually knows what they're doing,
And
not just somebody who is like, oh, yeah, I've been out there before. And like they just drive you out to the desert and they're like, well,
yeah, well,
here
they
it
have
is.
bus tours, that go out to a spot. But
Uh-huh.
apparently it's not the right spot.
Right. I've heard that too.
Somebody called me Gandalf.
Yeah.
Yeah. I met a bunch of kids one day out here in Los Alamos, and they were playing, and I told them that I was Gandalf.
You shall not pass.
Yeah, they was playing Lord of the Rings. They all had their characters assigned. And
Oh, that's awesome.
That's badass. Hell yeah, man. So were y'all talking about like living in Los Alamos in the desert?
No, he was talking. He was talking about how he spent a lot of time at the UFO museum in Roswell, and how he actually met all of the remaining people that were still alive, actually involved with the incident.
And then I met the town people too. One friend I used to ride my bike at night after it was closed in the parks and stuff. And I met this one guy. We became good friends. And he was just 8 years old in 47. But he says he remembers it distinctly because they were going on a picnic and they weren't allowed to leave. He said there was so many Army people there that they couldn't even leave the town. They had to go to the park to have their picnic. Well, I mean, this is just a guy out of the blue, that happened to live in Roswell at that time and remembered the whole thing. And how did he dispute his story?
Yeah, seriously. What's always got me is like, it's such a perfect town for a UFO to crash. Like, had it been any other like highly populated area, like possibly never have known about it. Like,
have you been to the UFO museum?
No, I would love to go though. It'd be sick.
Well, if you go, take me.
Dude, we'll come pick you up.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
We'll definitely come pick you
Hopefully
up.
Hopefully we'll have our UFO response vehicle by that time.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Yeah, which is our logo. It's a 64 Impala, and we always figured, hey, we'll get one of those and see if we can make it hover. And we want to cruise around space.
Yeah, well, I remember when the 64s came out.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
that was one of my favorite cars.
Oh, it was cool. I used to have a 70, and I loved it. I loved it. It was awesome.
I was always a Chevy guy, but I always had old ones that were worn out.
Yep. Yeah, man. Yeah, if we ever go out to Roswell to the museum, dude, we're definitely coming and picking you up, man.
Hell yeah, man. That would be dope. So, dude, speaking of the desert and things falling from the sky, Mike, tell us a little bit about this artifact. I mean, do we call it an artifact? Is it a geological?
It's a meteorite. It's a meteorite from Mars. I'm sure. I think you'll be convinced when I tell you the whole story. To me, the story starts when I was a child, and my mother sat me down one day, and she said, "Son, you're a Christian, and here's what Christians do: they read their Bible every night, and they pray to God for those things that are important and those things they want." Well, as a child, I had no clue what was important, but I knew what I wanted. Ever since I'd heard that there was stars and planets out there, I wanted some. I wanted to go there. But as a child, I couldn't figure out how I was going to get there. So I thought, well, if there's an all-powerful God, I'll just have him send me some. So every night
Yeah.
in my childhood, I prayed to God, please send me a piece of space. That was the way I made my prayer. And so in 1971, I'm working on my great aunt's ranch near Canadian, Texas, almost into Oklahoma. And it was the winter time, and you feed the cattle, you go around the same route every day. That way the cattle learn about when to come in, to be fed. And she, being a good rancher, wouldn't feed until every cow was in every pasture. So on this particular day, we left what's called the Sidna, and we turned into the North Meadow, and then in a few minutes, about 100 yards, the road turned north. And when it turned north, we could see about a half a mile ahead, there was a rock on the ground that had never been there. The ranch is made of what's called sand hills. There's really no rocks on it. It's all just intermittent streams, and it blows away really easily. So both of us saw it immediately, and she exclaimed, "What's that on my ranch?" And I said, "Well, if it's a rock from space, it's a meteorite." So we drove over to it, and since I'd prayed for one all my life, I just assumed that it was a meteorite right from the beginning. And I knew it was kind of important, so I just stood there and looked at the scene. And the ground was crusty. There hadn't been rain, and the sandy soil was crusty. So about 18 inches to the north, there was a little indentation, and then the meteorite was sitting there. It looked like to me it had bounced one time. And so she began honking about that point. She was about doing work, not looking at meteorites. So I brought it into the truck and said, "Can I have this?" And she said, "Sure." Because from her viewpoint, it was just covering the grass up, and she fed cattle. So grass was what she wanted, not rocks. So at that point, I kept it for quite some time. I was afraid somebody would take it from me if I had told anybody about it. So I just kept it in my closet. And when I'd have tough times in life, I'd get it out to remember that God answers prayers and that miracles still happen on this planet. And then the Pathfinder landed on Mars. And I'd always thought it was from Mars, because Mars is a small planet outside the orbit of Earth. It has little atmosphere, so it'd be fairly easy to knock something off of Mars. If it got into space, it would tend to come inward towards the sun. So it's conceivable that something from Mars would make it to Earth.
Yeah.
So at that point, I began actually looking at it myself under a microscope. And the first thing I saw was what looked like a piece of a tree with a filament on it. Obviously something that was alive at one point. And the more I looked, the more things I found. I found probably 15 or 20 different species of things in there. There's plants and insects. There's blind flying insects, spiders with a movable head, which doesn't exist on Earth. There's something that looks like a stink bug. There's shrimp-like creatures. There's a number of those in it. There's a little clamshell. Well, who knows? There's a little clamshell that's fused in the outside edge of the meteorite. When it came to the Earth and generated the heat of the fusion crust, it fused that little piece of, it's got some sand in it, and it's just like it was preserved perfectly on the outside of the meteorite. And so I began trying to contact scientists about it, and boy, I had nothing but trouble. I finally got a meeting with David Kring at Arizona State University, and we had about an hour and a half meeting over it. I brought a few samples, but didn't bring the meteorite. At the end of it, I thought everything went well. He seemed to agree with all by that time I'd done a bunch of tests. I had potassium argon dating, and I had the minerals and all the things that were in it had been tested. So I told him, I said, the rules for finding meteorites need to be rewritten, because this is a newly formed meteorite from a planetary body, and that's totally different than the old meteorites that are left over from the formation of the solar system. They're very heavy, dense, full of of heavy metals and that kind of thing. My meteorite weighs 22 pounds and it's bigger than a basketball. So It's very lightweight and then the evidence shows that it flew through the air with a single orientation, kind of like a lifting body that NASA tested. that it's got much more melting on the bottom. But I said, so the rules are going to have to be rewritten. And as I walked out the door, he handed me a little book. And it turns out he wrote the rules for finding meteorites.
Okay. So the plot thickens.
So from that moment on, David Kreen, Michael Zielinski, and Alan Treman were the 3 top meteoritic people in the world, and they blackballed me. Time after time, I would try to get probably 20 times a scientist would agree to study my meteorite. And never did I claim anything. All I wanted them to do is study it, make their own decisions. And 20 times when they found out it's me, they canceled it. Some kept their samples, some didn't. So after a period of time, I wrote my congressman and my 2 senators in Texas and told them about the problem. And they went to NASA and had the NASA Oversight Committee of Congress demand that NASA study my meteorite. So at that point,
good.
So not good.
Oh no.
So over a period of 3 months or so, they gave me a contact person. I think his name was Alan Sharpton, but I'd have to look up and find it for sure. But so I made arrangements to make a meeting in Houston at NASA to look at it. And I told them that I wanted at least 10 people there. And I wanted people, not just meteoritic people, but I want life experts and geologists and different life scientists. Because, I mean, if I show them a creature that doesn't exist on Earth, then you have to give credibility that it came from somewhere else. And I didn't want the meteoritic people just to say, oh, no, it's not a meteorite, which is basically the way it works. You take a rock to them and they declare it a meteorite or not. If they say not, then you're out of luck. So 2 days before this meeting is to occur, Alan Sharpton gets transferred to Alaska. I haven't heard from him since.
Whoa.
Alan Treman contacted me and said, oh, I'll give you a fair hearing. So me and my son drive to Houston. When I get there, there's not the 10 people. They're just Alan Treman. He said, well, there's some NASA rule that prohibits you from more than one person looking at this meteorite. You know that's a lie.
Yeah.
There's no rule of that. So luckily I recorded the whole thing and I posted it on my new YouTube page, Gravionic Garden. The whole meeting is on there if you want to see it.
Yeah,
and so
I was going to ask.
I thought everything went well. He went over all my evidence. We went up to his lab and looked through his microscope at some thin sections that had been made. I said, I need chemistry here, 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 and here. He said, I'll be on that machine tomorrow. What would you think? You think tomorrow he's going to do that chemistry? No, he wrote a report to send it to NASA, didn't list any of my evidence, and his only conclusion was, in his opinion, it wasn't a meteorite. Well, at that point, even my senators wouldn't answer my letters anymore. And so...
Oh, wow.
What is so? So I have a question. So what's the size? What was the size when you found this meteorite? And you said something about a basketball, maybe?
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger than a basketball, and it's round. Also, there's 2 separate videos on my YouTube channel that I made concerning the evidence of Martian origin of the Frass meteorite. It landed on the Frass Ranch, so I called it the Frass meteorite. If you want to see, you can see the meteorite. You can see all my evidence laid out there that I prepared, and make up your own mind. But again, all I've ever asked is for them to study it. I've made my own decisions about what I think it is, but I've never tried to put anything over anybody. I've never hidden anything from them. I still have everything that's still available for study except the blind flying insect. The scientist I sent it to said it never was come.
Oh, of course it didn't.
I'm like the spider with the rotating head. That's probably the most creepy thing I can think of. You know, like
well, that's on there. If you got a minute, I can show you a picture of it.
Yeah,
I'd love to see that.
Bring it out. Show and tell.
Oh,
hell
holy crap! Hey, remember on that unnamed program with the unnamed guy? He talks about the spiders that are on Mars.
Yes.
Pretty interesting.
Okay.
Maybe
These are
stole Mike's story.
These are the negatives from a photomicrograph. And I may have to move the camera around.
Let's see.
Whoa.
Oh yeah, you can see it.
And you can see its head is movable. It's turned to the side. The head is right
going
here.
full screen.
The head's okay. Can you point out the head again? Just one more time.
Right here.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Whoa.
So,
That's pretty.
And so I
interesting.
still have this. And on Earth, all spiders have a fused head and thorax. There is no
Right.
spider on Earth that has a separate head. And you can see the body parts here. I can anyway. If I shine the light behind it, I don't know.
oh, dude. So I'm looking for. I could definitely make out a body and some legs.
And some legs, yeah. And the
They're
head's
kind of like
on this
it's almost
hand
like a stegosaurus kind of plates or so. It almost looks like a crab to me. I guess crabs and spiders.
Yeah,
are pretty similar.
crabs and spiders are related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
And it could have been a sea creature. I don't know,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, who knows?
Dude, that's super
man?
interesting.
That is super
Oh,
cool. I love
man.
that. Thanks for sharing that with me. Hey,
Yeah.
and also, I'll put the links to those YouTube links on this video when I'm not sure if you.
So with this meteorite, man, I'm assuming you were saying that as it entered the atmosphere, it got hot, but it's only on one side, so this thing didn't rotate. But we do know that from the bottom of it that I guess came through the atmosphere, we do know that it came from space because that's the only way that would happen, right?
Yeah, the fusion crust is on all sides, but it's just the thickest on the bottom. But the rock is very vesicular. It's made of a whole bunch of holes with very thin walls. You can break almost any wall in the meteorite with your thumbnail. It's that thin and that delicate. I think if I took it over my head and threw it against concrete, it would just shatter.
Do you think that it was a bigger piece when it hit the ground initially, and then probably?
I think what happened is because it's made that way, it's made essentially like a space shuttle heat tile. It's thin walls and vesicles, so it dissipates heat very rapidly. I heated it to 800 degrees one day and was able to touch it in about 10 seconds.
Whoa!
That's how well it dissipates heat. Now, the space shuttle heat tiles, you can heat those to 10,000 degrees and touch them almost immediately.
I'm just curious how it seems to be very fragile. Like how did it slam into the ground without just shattering into pieces?
It didn't. It was actually it apparently lost all of its altitude and all of its velocity, and it bounced 18 inches.
Yeah.
In a sandy soil. It was,
that's true. Yeah. It's very light.
Just as soft, and it's lightweight. Yeah. But it's here. I mean, and we can't deny the chemistry or anything.
I wanna buy a microscope, and I will help with that science if possible when we pick you up.
Well, I still got a microscope. I bought everything. I spent $2,500 to get a microscope so I could look at it. I spent thousands of dollars on potassium argon dating test.
Yeah.
And so
that is not
that's
cheap.
so interesting.
I have information that it's real.
Yeah.
It's got to be difficult though, because you found this meteorite, and in order to look at it, you have to kind of destroy it at the same time. So I guess it probably hurts your heart when you have to look at it. It's like, well, here's another chip.
Okay, and here's another bad story. When I came to Los Alamos, I was in the newspaper. I had my meteorite, and I was asking the lab to study it. So a group of people at the lab agreed to study it. And then after a few days, they said, well, they would only study it if I would let them drill a hole through it. And I said, okay, I'll let you drill a hole through it if you'll study it, but you can't use water. You don't need water. It's not hard. So they drilled a hole through it, and then they decided they wasn't going to study it. And I said, why are you not going to study it? And he said, well, I just don't think it's a meteorite. He said, it doesn't show any shocking. The shocking has occurred when two things hit each other very hard. So I showed him a study that showed that none of the Martian meteorites that were already recognized were shocked, except the one they found life on, maybe. And it was shocked while it was on Mars billions of years ago. And then I showed him another scientific report showing how you could get material off of Mars without shocking it. And he said, I don't care. I'm just not going to study it.
Oh,
man.
And so now I have a hole all the way through the meteorite. And you're right. Valuable information is lost to humanity because they made me do that, and then they wouldn't take it up and study it.
Ah, that's frustrating. You know what that makes me think of, man, is this something I've been thinking about for a little bit. I guess it kind of stems from this inside joke between me and Joe and our podcast listeners is this idea of the doctor scientist. Like it's almost like you at a certain point you have to laugh at it because it's so frustrating. Some of this, I mean, including your story, Mike, where the evidence is right there, and for some reason
won't even look at it.
They can't look at it. Why don't you just look at it? And it I think it all stems back to this protection of the community of maybe, and this falls into like doctors and Egyptologists and paleontologists. Like everybody's got a boss, and if their reputation is at stake and their jobs
you
at
can't
stake,
make a mistake.
It's like you're bred into this cultural. There's more than just the science. It seems there's more than that has to do with it. Like you can't be connected with something that may be considered pseudoscience or anything that might put your investment in jeopardy. It's so frustrating.
Well, one of my bad personality habits is I like to irritate scientists on the bus. And I've literally had them get off the bus so they wouldn't have to listen to me. Not at their stop, just get off.
How do you know?
I usually talk to someone else. I talk to the driver or someone who's asked me a question, but I make sure that the scientists can hear what I'm saying, and they just don't like it. Even one bus driver was a scientist. He stopped picking me up. He wouldn't even. I turned him in twice. He wouldn't even try to stop for me.
I was going to ask, how do you spot the scientists? Like, is it pretty easy?
Oh, in Los Alamos, you can. Their auras. Just look for an ego, and you got a scientist.
That's awesome, dude. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh man. So
this third person here is a millionaire. This is the richest town in America. It has the most PhDs of any town. So there's a lot of game for me to shoot at it.
Yeah, definitely. Man.
And what's interesting is there's a faith and science group that meets here, trying to determine the relationship between faith and science. And they have everybody in the world speak, but they won't let me speak. And this week they're studying Adam and Eve, and they don't have a clue what's going on. So I sent a letter to them just explaining Adam and Eve. You go look at paper 73, 74, 75, 76.
Yeah.
You'll learn everything about it. And they won't let me speak, and most of them won't even talk to me.
That's so weird.
That is very strange.
I don't understand. Like for me, it's always been confusing, when stuff like that happens, because it's like, how do you get to the bottom of something if you don't listen to all the evidence or all the stories? Like if you can't listen to what everybody has to say, then how can you actually make an informed decision on the topic of discussion? Yeah.
Well, if you want status in heaven, just about everybody goes if you believe in God. But if you want status, you need to love the truth, follow the truth, and go wherever it leads you. And that's just what the scientists are not willing to do.
Yeah.
And as an independent philosopher, that's where I've tried to always go, just go where the evidence takes me. Then I've never had my mind made up about anything beforehand.
Right. Yeah, that's what I like about you, man. You've said this a lot of times tonight, and it's look, I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm presenting evidence and allowing you to make up your own, your own conclusion about the evidence that I present, right? You have your own opinions on what you think it is, but you're not telling anybody to believe anything. You're saying, hey, go look at this. Just check it out. That's literally all you want people to do is look at some paper and just say, what do you think? Right. But they won't even give that time, you know? and it's kind of strange. You know, time is the most valuable thing for as a human being, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
in heaven, you have eternity, so time's no longer important.
Exactly.
But here, you only have so much time to get your job done.
Exactly. So, you know, in a small way, I kind of understand. Like, if it's just not your thing, it's not your thing. But at the same time, when something that says, "Hey, I might have some answers," right, and you just don't take the time to look at it, there's a difference in disinterest and then just being lazy. You know.
Yeah. Well, in Rancho Book says the mortal mind is lazy in solving cosmic problems.
That makes sense.
We just don't want to face them.
I know.
I face it every day. I'm a philosopher, so I love to look for problems and try to solve them, but that's not human nature.
Right.
I love that. I love that you have a good attitude about it, man. You're not salty at all.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you're just kind of like, hey, I don't know. They're just not looking at. I'm giving them.
We didn't see his face when they drilled a hole through his meteorite and then gave it back and was like, never mind.
Yeah.
I bet he was pretty upset about that.
Yeah. Well, the Urantia Book has helped me, be able to handle all these different situations and understand all I have to do each day is the will of God. I don't have to do anything else. If I've done that, then I've completed my mission on earth. And so I just take it one day at a time and take what comes to me. And hopefully something may happen from this. So I don't know how many people you have that watch, but sooner or later, somebody's going to look at the meteorite. And sooner or later, somebody's going to say, yeah, the Zeta are real.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You'd be surprised who's listening right now. I mean,
I was curious, man. How did your transition from, because I know when you said that when you were a kid, your mom sat you down and said, hey, look, this is what Christians do. We read the Bible and we pray for things that we want and need or whatever. How did that transition? Did you go through a period of time to where you maybe resented the old Christian values and the Bible and stuff, and then maybe went through a period of like just non-belief and then discovered the Urantia Book? Or did you make the transition over to the Urantia Book?
Well, the story you tell is what I hear over and over. I never really lost faith.
Right.
I realized the church was wrong early, and luckily I had a good preacher when I was really little. Like I asked him, well, what's about creationism and evolution? And he said, well, science is a search for facts in one reality, and spirituality is a search for facts in another reality. And God made them both, so they should never conflict. And the Rancho Book says science only gets rid of myths and religion. It doesn't. If you believe in God, it doesn't have any effect upon you. Science just gets rid of the things that aren't true. So I went through, I've walked the equivalent of the circumference of the world, talking to the Father and asking about gravity and how things worked. And he revealed a bunch of answers to me over time. And so I reached the end of my potential. I went as far as I could go on my own. And the Rancho Book says every mortal in every world has a limit to what they can figure out on their own. So then I went through a period of several years of decline that I wasn't happy and wasn't advancing. And then I found the Urantia Book. And then from that point, I realized that, learning is an infinite process. It never stops. It goes on on forever. And I found the answers that allowed me to motivate and get back and try to change things.
Yeah.
I honestly feel like learning about this now, in my kind of journey with the UFO, the alien topic, I've always been interested in it, but learning about this now, I have kind of felt a little stagnant with my curiosity. It's like I've almost reached a point where like, well, what else could it be? Just trying to figure it out. And
what's new? Yeah.
What's new, man? I want to, so like the timing on this
information.
Yeah. The timing. I mean, there's still stuff that I'm still like, I feel like I don't know. I definitely don't know everything, but like new concepts is like, this is definitely refreshing, new concepts. Like I would love to figure out like, what the Sumerians were all about. What were they doing, man? But
And be able to
Yeah,
just
well,
go
I
to
don't
the
remember
index.
without
just
figuring
go
it
to the
out.
index. Oh, I love it. I love it. So
Get the book with the subject index and just look up any subject that you want. It's got some very deep subjects in there.
I love that. I love that. You know, and it's funny too, because I grew up in like a really strict Catholic family, right? And I always wondered myself as a kid and growing up, like there was always science and then there was religion. But for me, it was always like, well, what if science just makes the story make more sense? You know, it's not so much a contradiction. We're actually figuring out the science behind the heavens. And that to me was more interesting than as a combination, right? Than either subject on its own.
Well, I do a lot of spiritual teaching, and I work with a lot of people with problems and stuff. And what I've discovered is that what you say is really true, that most people were raised in a church, then they lost faith in the church, and then they gave up on God, and then they started believing in God again. And then whenever I show them the Rancho Book, now they can put it all together. Here's the truth, and they can believe it. But there's not enough truth being taught in the churches, so it's easy to doubt, what they're saying. And then so many of them, I mean, they just make science and religion conflict, like the two can't be together.
Right.
But the Rancho Book says the cause of all energies, material, spiritual, mental, and personality, come from heaven, and that's the first cause of everything. So the problem with the scientists is they are about studying cause and effect, but they can't tell you what the first cause was. So I can ask you what caused you, and you say, well, my parents. And I said, what caused them? We go back to the first cell, go back. What was the first cause? Well, they can never answer it. And even with their Big Bang Theory right now, they have an effect without a cause. So it's really not a scientific model. It's a religious model. I have to believe on faith that something can come from nothing in their model, where the Urantia Book says things are so much older. And I figured that out a long time ago.
Right.
I look at the Milky Way. According to them, it's only orbited like 45 times or something. Can you imagine something as big as the Milky Way only turning around 45 times in all of existence? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It's been spinning for trillions of years.
It's so big.
Wow.
Dude,
that's such a long time. I've never even thought about that.
Does he believe in different dimensions? Just came up with.
Oh yeah.
Lewis. Yeah.
Do you believe in different dimensions?
The Rancho Book answers that. Absolutum. When you get to Paradise Isle, the home of God, there's actually 10 dimensions. There's 1,000 elements. It's totally different. So the crystallia that I've talked about, the reason they can store so much information is it exists in 10 dimensions. There's 3 dimensions in the material world, and there's 7 more in the semi-material and the spiritual realms. So the extra dimensions go into the spiritual realm. And that's how some spirits are able to kind of work that to get into us.
That's very interesting.
So there are 10 dimensions in reality. And interesting enough, in the superstring mathematics, they always end their superstring at multiple dimensions, and they can't figure out how many it is. So the answer would be 10.
Yeah.
So in your experience or the knowledge that you have about dimensions, do they exist at the same time, or does time just not exist within the string theory?
In spiritual reality, there is no time. Once you become a spirit, you're no longer a time being. Time is a function of space. It's a function of the evolving universe. And space and time, even under my gravitic model, are related intimately.
I've
and there's actually sections on it in the Rancho Book. It talks about space and time, and Jesus actually talked about space and time and reality and some very deep subjects. he talked about the difference between the spiritual and the physical realities. He gave a really interesting.
That's so cool. I recently heard someone speak about so you have the 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3rd dimension, and then the 4th dimension is described by time. So the 5th dimension,
that's mankind's mistake. Time is not a dimension. It's an aspect of space and reality, but it's not a dimension. It can be used to classify something as the coordinates and space coordinates and time coordinates, but time is not a dimension. And it shouldn't
it's maybe a unit of direction in a way.
Gravionics, I define time as the changing of the connections of gravity. Whenever and like right now, just in your presence, you guys there's a jillion gravitational connections between you. Each one that changes as you move or do anything or you think, that creates a change of a gravitational connection in the mass, and that's what time is. If you follow a particle of light coming, there's no time associated with it because there's no changing of connections of gravity.
Interesting. So in the Urantia book, if there's 3 dimensions that are classified with materialism and
the material reality,
the material reality, is that why we are still considered like 3rd dimensional beings, because we are in the material reality, basically?
Well, who considers us 3rd dimensional beings?
Well,
where did that term come from?
Well, I guess if we're talking about like the 3-dimensional world, the physical reality that we live in, I guess like science would say like
geometry.
Yeah, it's kind of a 3-dimensional world that we live in, that we can perceive, at least.
Yeah.
There's obviously more dimensions, but if we're just talking about the 3-dimensional world, if in the Urantia book, it kind of like there's this little connection to where if it is the material world, then that would make sense why we are only like a 3rd-dimensional being,
Yeah.
Because once you get into the 4th and 5th and you get into these higher realms, you start to lose that.
Spirit realms at that point, or semi-material spirit realms.
Right. So if you're not once you get into that range, if you're not a time constrained being, are you more of like a place being? It's like, it's not so much that you're here at a time, but you're in a certain place.
Well, spirits just don't have any relationship hardly to the material reality. There's an interesting section on the celestial artisans, that paper, and it's being dictated by an archangel, and the archangel says that from his viewpoint he can just barely discern the room they're in, and he has help from a being that can change energies and help him materialize it. And also with him is a divine counselor, which comes from the central universe, and the physical reality is even more invisible to him. He has the help to even perceive it. But next to him is a mighty messenger, which is a mortal that's been through all the training and spirits and everything and perfected, and he still has all the sights that he had as a mortal. You gain about 70 senses in heaven, and so, but you never lose any. So the ex-mortal, he can see the room, see everything that he could ever see, but the more spiritual beings can't see it, and they just pass right to exist.
Wow.
Dude.
And that's all described in there if you want more details.
It's got everything.
Lewis asked a question in the chat, and you beat me to the punch, but Mike, so what do you think about the relationship between the the pineal gland and the dream state? Like, what do you know about maybe the connection between the dream state and dimensionality or dimensions?
Well, it discusses that somewhat. The pituitary gland affects brain chemistry. So what the results are, we don't exactly know. But it says to be really careful about interpreting dreams, that most of them come from the animal world and they don't mean anything. A few can come from above, but it says you need to be really careful interpreting dreams. That's probably not something that you should try to do.
So have you ever experienced, or maybe know somebody that has experienced like auditory hallucinations while in dream state, or maybe have heard or had received downloads?
Well, I've told you kind of how they received the Rancho Book and this stuff. They talk in their sleep, but the way I kind of receive revelations is God just puts pictures in my mind. I can see the gravitational systems, and it just appears all at once. Imagine if a car just appeared in front of you and you could see all the parts and how they all interrelated. That's kind of the way it works with me. These images just appear three-dimensional that kind of help me understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I guess I was kind of reiterating that idea because
Dick Cheney is not human.
Yeah, dude.
We have pretty fun people in the chat, and I mean, it just gets silly sometimes, but we have a good time.
Well, there's no sex in heaven for you, but the material sons and daughters are the sex creatures of heaven, the Adams and Eves. They have families in heaven. They teach proper family life and all that kind of thing.
So all the people on earth are having more fun.
They have oral sex. The update to the Rancho Book says, though, that we should avoid unnatural sex. That's a mundane problem that we should solve by will and gluttony.
Everybody, they're gonna start turning on you in the chat now, man.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can say that. They're gonna start
the other one, so I'm overweight. So I'm just as guilty as anybody else. But
I love that, man. I love that so much, dude.
Earth girls have all the fun, right?
Yeah.
Well, we should accept everybody, no doubt. But I'm not sure that all of our lifestyles on Earth are exactly what heaven planned. And in a normal world, they're probably not. But right now, we need to accept people. That's what's important. I just really don't want to know about their sex life, though.
That's all right.
Philosopher, well, primitive humans like to discuss sex.
You got enough stuff to think about, right?
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot more important things, I think. But then again, I've been single for 30 years, so.
Some would say you're doing it right, though, my friend. They would say you're doing it right.
Oh, man.
Yeah, well, I'm trying, and I'm in very close contact with my indwelling adjuster, the Father within, the God within. And so every day I do the will of God, and I know that I'm doing it.
I like that.
That's
man.
beautiful,
I like
man.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in your mind, I mean, in your experience, all creation is equal. So there is some stuff in the Bible that talks about like, hey, like everybody is should be treated the same. Like treat your neighbor as so. I'm wording this terribly, but
we're obviously not equal.
I was going to ask, like, should we treat extraterrestrials as equal? Is that kind of the sentiment here? Because I think so, yes. Like, maybe that fear shouldn't be there.
Yeah, Jesus taught that everybody is your brother, but he was teaching it for all 10 million of his worlds. Every being on another planet is your brother, too. Just as even the Bible asks the question, who is my neighbor? Is it just the guy that lives closest to me? No, Jesus said it's everybody on earth. But to the celestial beings, he said it's everybody in existence. And so the basic rule through all existence, if you're with somebody that knows less than you, you teach them. If you're with somebody that knows more than you, you respect them and listen to them. That's
right. Yeah.
That's a good rule for Earth. I mean,
yeah, I love that.
That's a good rule of thumb for anything.
Yeah,
for sure.
Dude, yeah. Van Gogh says, even Chuck Norris said, apologize to every blade of grass you tread upon. That's kind of cool. Does he really say that?
I don't know.
Norris? That's awesome.
Chuck Norris does a lot of things that I don't know about, I'm sure. So, Mike, earlier you had mentioned, we started talking a little bit about the Zetas and their saucer-shaped craft. Yeah. Do we have any identification on who's piloting some of this other stuff?
Well, the one that got shot down, it says there was 3 people in it. There was an operator, an astrophysicist, and a pregnant astrophysicist, and one other scientist I can't remember. Whoa. And so they don't even call it spaceship driver. They just call it an operator.
Wow.
It says
And
they
it-
recharge on Mocumbria, that there's recharging stations. And so Bob Lazar, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he says that they use element 115. And so, but the Rancho Book says they're recharging. I don't know if they use element 115 to recharge. And by the way, and when you get to the next stage of life, there's 200 elements in the Urantia world, the next stage. They slow
wow.
everything down, and so there's gigantic crystals and metals and stuff that we don't know about. There's a landing crystal on most artificial worlds that's 100 miles across and 60 miles deep. That's where the angels take off and land.
Whoa.
And they also have it for shows. They can seat 1 billion beings can watch a performance on one of those.
No way. What? Dude. Angels
All
need
right,
a-
everybody
need a-
gather around.
Angels know how to party, dude.
Angels party hard.
Angels party hard.
Yeah, they said recently 1 million beings recreated 1,000 scenes in a performance.
Whoa.
So is this performance like a theatrical kind of thing? Is this like
Yeah, they reproduce. There's all kinds of celestial artisans to uplift. Half the time off in heaven is off, and so there's all kinds of things to keep you happy and remind you of things that have happened. And your vision is greatly extended, and most of the buildings don't have roofs. So on the administration's worlds, you can walk around the edge of it and look down and watch the beings working down below you without roofs.
that is
The
so
planets
cool.
are artificial, and they're artificially heated, and there's no rain. Water all comes from underneath. And there's 10 types of life on those worlds. It said 3 of them we would identify as animal, and 3 as plant, and the rest we wouldn't have a clue.
Whoa.
What? Man,
That's crazy.
That's so fun. That's so fun.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you heard, like, if you've seen or heard stories about this possible unknown species of animal that might be flying around in our upper atmosphere and the Earth, and that could be one of the explanations. Does that sound like phooey to you? Because I don't know, man. It sounds like maybe just we haven't discovered it yet, and maybe.
Yeah. Well, here's another interesting thing that the update says. Apparently, Bigfoot is real. There's a section discussing the animal life on our planet, and it says there's a number of species that are yet undetected, but they got caught they didn't get enough intelligence to become human. They got stopped. The Lucifer Rebellion stopped all the progress on our planet, and so they're kind of just lost creatures in time. They're very shy, and they don't like to make their presence known. But I think I've been in contact with one. As the caveman of Atomic City, I was camped out on the mountain above Los Alamos in the middle of the winter. And night after night, these weird melodies played, like somebody blowing through a pipe. And there was just 3 or 4 notes. They didn't really sound human, but it played over and over. And my native friends have heard the same thing. And I went out in the daytime. I searched. There's nobody been there. I was miles from any civilization. There was just nothing to make it. And so the Jemez Mountains where I live, the natives say that they live here. It says they can make fire, and they're just caught in time. They're not quite intelligent enough to be human, but they're intelligent enough to keep going.
Yeah.
I'm trying, man. That is so interesting. We've had a guest on before that has shared with us some audio recordings of what sounds maybe similar to what you're describing. It's like 3 or 4 notes, and it sounds like a flute whistle off in the distance.
Yeah.
It's pretty eerie sounding. I'm trying to find it right now so I can play it for you.
Well, I definitely heard that night after night. I was camped in 3 foot of snow up on the mountain. And then the Forest Service finally found me. They said it came down from above to find me and get me out of the forest.
Oh, man.
The guy came up to my tent with his gun drawn, and
Oh, golly.
I
It's
quickly
crazy.
made friends with him.
You had Bigfoot right next to you playing a flute, and then some human asshole comes up with a gun in your face.
Yeah, dude.
And they're the animals.
Humans are not. We still have a long ways to go. We're not too much smarter than in the time of Jesus, you know.
Yeah. Somebody asked, do other religions play a part in this, or just like Jesus and like the?
No, actually, all the religions of Earth are discussed. What actually happened was, how long was it? About 1,200 years before Jesus, the world was losing the concept of one God. And so Machiaventia Melchizedek, he materialized on our planet. He's written in the Bible, Melchizedek it's called. And he was a teacher of Abraham, but he was also the teacher of many more. He sent his disciples around the world, and Buddhism, Hinduism, Zoroaster, all of those have their basis in his teachings. And there's a whole section in the Urantia book that goes through what those different religions believed at that time. And most of them you would think were Christian. If you looked, you'd think it was Christian thoughts that what they believed. So all the world's religions are based on Melchizedek's teachings. Those that could learn more, he taught more, and those that could learn less, he taught a simpler version of things. And so Abraham was his main student, and Abraham became the founder of the Jewish religion, and I guess what's considered the Christian and the Muslim also.
Right.
Yeah. So all those religions are covered in there in quite some detail, and even Jesus talks about Buddha. He said Buddha took his religious ship all the way into the harbor, but didn't go ashore. He didn't have a god. He had everything but a one God. So all of his followers are all stuck on a ship right outside the harbor.
Oh,
They're within sight of salvation, and they're still stuck on the ship.
I've always had like this curiosity, and maybe just like a wish that all the earthly religions all stem from one place. Like there's some truth to almost everything, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just love that idea, and like each continent or religion has something.
Paper 133 in the Rancho Book discusses all of those and how they came about. And paper 121 discusses all the religions at the time of Jesus, what the different people, what they believed, what was going on. And then you'd find paper 144 interesting. It lists a number of alien prayers in there. People in Jesus' time was always wanting to hear a prayer. Jesus tried to teach them just to talk to God like a person. He didn't want you to repeat the same prayer over. And the Lord's Prayer came about because he was trying to teach his brothers and sisters a prayer, and they never could. He'd just give them one sentence and hope they'd finished it, but they just added them together and made the Lord's Prayer. So he taught other prayers too. There's some really beautiful ones from other worlds.
Cool. I want to have these. Awesome.
Paper 144.
What? I want to know what they say, man. That's so interesting. I love that.
Somebody was asking, that's
a really good one, dude. Lewis coming in with the great questions. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the pyramid? I mean, the pyramids. Maybe not how they were built, but
well, I think they were built by humans, but the Rancho Book it tells the religion of the people, and the fact that I don't know when mankind discovered it, but there's a tunnel that points towards the North Star, goes into the middle chambers. Mankind discovered in the 70s or 80s or something, but that's mentioned, and it tells how it fits in their religion. It also says that if things had been a little different, Jesus would have come in the Nile Valley rather than to the Jews. They had some very spiritual concepts, and some of their rulers believed in the one God and taught a very true religion. But Tutankhamun went back to the old ways, and they deteriorated in their belief in one God, and that's why the Jews were picked as the most advanced religion for Jesus to come into. But Jesus almost came to the Nile Valley.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's super interesting.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that kind of does.
That's kind of cool.
I mean, so that makes me think of this idea. Well, the Library of Alexandria. It is.
Well, Jesus visited it, and it's talked about quite a bit. And matter of fact, paper 160 and 161 are the only two papers apparently written by a mortal on Earth. They're the thoughts of Rodin of Alexandria, which I think may be the greatest philosopher the Earth has had, but he's not mentioned in any Earth book. All of his works was destroyed in the Alexandria Library when it was destroyed, when it was torn apart. And so there's no Earth records of his philosophy, but yet two papers in the Urantia Book are devoted to it because he came to Jesus to unify his philosophy with the teachings of Jesus. And he was probably one of only 3 people on the earth that ever actually understood what Jesus was saying.
Dude, interesting. Ernest Anderson, we're talking about the Urantia Book.
Urantia Book.
For anybody who's new up in the chat right now, and you missed the beginning half, we're talking about the Rancho Book. We're talking about aliens. We're talking about Bigfoot. We're talking about everything and how it's all connected kind of to this book.
Yeah.
It's got all the answers, right?
Well, that's how you know it's a true revelation from God, is because it unites every human concept into one thing: religion, spirituality, cosmology, science, spirituality, psychology, earth history, universe history, and the life and teachings of Jesus are all integrated into a single viewpoint. It all goes together and makes one complete story.
Dude. Okay. Wow.
Somebody was asking.
The White Book is available as a download, and it tells how the thing got started, how the books were printed and the process. The Black Book is the one that has about aliens in it.
And it says the number 3 because it's the 3rd book, right? Joe was telling me that it's the 3rd book of the Bible, or no?
That was the assumption that I made. Like, if you're talking like in the line of like we don't really know.
It says they're going to continue over the next few hundred years presenting us with revelations as they're needed, but we don't know how long that's continuing with the present person. What he did was he was able to fuse with the God within. He became so spiritual that he fused with the God within. Normally that happens at death, and you're translated to heaven. You don't even die if you do that. But in certain situations, they can allow someone to stay on the planet. It says for administrative purposes. And so if they've achieved all they wanted to achieve with these 3 books, then he's probably gone. I wrote him a couple of days ago and he didn't answer. I don't know. That means he's
the internet's not so good. The internet connection is pretty terrible on the different planes.
Yeah. Somewhere else, man.
Yeah, man.
Dude, that's so crazy.
So there's one on Crystallia. There's several pages on it.
That's the substance that's being mined, right?
Yeah, and then Montgomery, the mining planet. And by the way, that's another interesting thing, I think. And then the Zetas is this other paper. Is there's always been a story that there's a research center at Dulce, New Mexico, and there's been a story that there's a tunnel between Los Alamos and Dulce. And I never did really believe that because I didn't think we could dig a tunnel like that. But now we learn that the Zetas are miners. They mine thousands of miles deep into a planet with their machinery. It would be nothing for them to drill a hole from Los Alamos. And I can show you places where there's just wires going to the ground.
Whoa,
and there's a known system of tunnels in Los Alamos that's been made public in recent years that was made during the war. This giant chamber under our city, apparently big enough to play at least one football game.
Wow.
And where the first nuclear reactor in Los Alamos was placed.
Right. Again, like, why Los Alamos? It's the perfect town to do it in, man. Like,
well, they could hide here. They could hide here, yeah. In those days. Definitely. Yeah, you can't even hardly see it, although I have a picture from an airplane that shows, and I've been down there. You can see the entrance. There's 2 entrances that are big enough to drive a semi-truck in.
Really?
And when they were cleaning up the nuclear reactor stuff, I watched for weeks as every 10 minutes a semi truck would come out loaded with big rocks in it.
Mm-hmm. So they were
weeks on end. They was cleaning up all the radiation thing.
Oh,
Material, apparently extracting it and taking it out.
I wonder where they were taking that.
I don't know.
Be careful with that, dude.
It was right below my cave when I was in my cave, and I could just watch them drive by.
Mike the caveman, dude. I love that. Would you consider it being an Earth ship? Your cave in the desert there?
Yeah, I was off the grid. I had a solar system. Like I said, I was about to add a satellite internet. I calculated I had enough energy. I could be on the internet for about an hour a day.
Oh, that's cool.
That's awesome. I don't know. I mean, the Earth battery thing. I just learned about this thing. I mean, if you don't,
yeah, I've never heard of it. I'll have to.
It's pretty interesting. It's the same physics as a Baghdad battery. You basically, so I guess people have figured it out. I mean, if you search Earth battery on YouTube, as long as you, so it started out as little circles in the dirt. Like if you dig up a pile of dirt and then you pour water into, or you have loose dirt, right? And then you pour water into that and have zinc and copper connected to another dirt pile. You're basically
that's
doing
a battery.
Anode and cathode with the I guess there's minerals and heavy metals in soil, so that acidic interaction between the metals. It's very low amperage, but you can get up to. I've seen a couple of videos where people got like 6 or 7 volts, which is enough to charge a regular like rechargeable battery that's like acid battery or lithium ion. Super interesting stuff.
It's easier to buy just a little solar cell.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. You got to find a way to link them all up, man. You'd have like little holes dug like a mile long.
It would take so many of them. But I don't know, I just love that.
Yeah, well, you can make one out of a lemon and any number of things. You just need certain ingredients.
Yeah. Potatoes.
I don't see how that solves any human problems, though.
Yeah, like there's
we
gotta
can't
be
have a whole bunch of little holes all over the place storing solar energy.
Yeah, that's where you call the Zetas to dig some holes for you, man. That's we know some.
Yeah, well, it says on Malcumbria they're doing the smart thing. They use solar energy, and then when they need combustibles, they make hydrogen from water using solar energy. I've been preaching it for decades. I've got videos on my channel about it. That's the way to store energy. It's a universal energy. It can work in any engine that's ever been made. It produces no pollution. It can bathe in an infinite cycle from water. You use sunlight to separate the hydrogen and the oxygen. You store them, burn them back together. You run generators or cars or trucks or whatever you want from it. And everybody could make their own fuel then. You wouldn't have to rely on somebody else to make your fuel.
Yep.
Well, don't go
this
apply
is another
for
one of my ministries.
I'm gonna sign up for that class, but I mean, I'm just saying, don't go to apply for any patent because you might get a knock at your door, and I don't know. I mean,
no, I give away everything I do freely. People stole my ideas over the years, and I'm glad they've got them. I don't care. It's my job as a philosopher to have new ideas.
I love that. I love that, dude. That's good.
Yeah, if somebody will steal the hydrogen idea, that's fine with me.
Good, right? Yeah.
Actually, it goes back to a guy named Harry Braun, who in the 70s realized we'd have a problem and began working out what the solution was. He's been trying to get it recognized ever since. He's actually run for president virtually over time on a platform of converting our whole economy to hydrogen. Before the Afghanistan war, he had a $3 trillion plan to convert all of America to hydrogen and would be totally energy independent forever. But instead, we went and bombed people for $3 trillion, and we're still burning gasoline.
Yeah, that's not cool.
And a gallon of gasoline is 87% carbon, has 5.5 pounds of carbon. Every time you burn a gallon, you're dropping 5.5 pounds of car turds on the road.
Whoa. That's a lot of car turds.
That's a lot of car poo-poo, man. I don't know.
I like that term. I'm gonna start using that way more
Car
often.
turds.
And the car could be converted to hydrogen, and then it would be totally
Yeah, it's still a
the oldest
combustible.
car you could find.
Yeah.
Well, it was. I've got
I-
Harry Braun has an article. His website is phoenixprojectfoundation.us, and he's got a picture on there of Henry Ford beating on a fender of a car made from hemp, and it's powered by hydrogen, also made from hemp. So,
Really?
known about
Yeah, I mean,
this forever.
I think
It's just-
I've known about the hemp fiber shell,
Yeah.
but I didn't know about the
He said when
hydrogen.
your car, he said when your car wears out, just bury it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dude. Yeah, it's just got to go fast, right? That's the whole thing. It's got to go fast. People
Well,
always
but
assume that you can't make it go fast, but obviously you can.
Yeah. Well, we could probably recycle all that material too.
Yeah, totally. Let's see.
Yeah, there's been a lot of solutions, and we've just taken ignorant courses for humanity. We've always taken the course that made the most money for a few people, and not what was best for the most people. And battery cars were popular before. At the same time, gasoline was coming out. We could have had a whole generation of battery cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, truck turns. Yeah, well, that 2001 could be converted to hydrogen.
Yeah, man. But I mean, at the same time, batteries aren't exactly awesome, right? I mean,
hydrogen
you
is
gotta
a
have a
solution.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can fill up a hydrogen tank about as fast as a gasoline tank, have the same range, produce no pollution, and not have any problems.
That's pretty awesome. There was a guy that I was looking into a while back. What was his name? Jacques Fresco. He had talked about the Venus Project, or Project Venus. Have you ever heard about that?
No.
It's pretty interesting. He did a lot of studies, like he followed like Buckminster Fuller really closely, and did a lot of engineering and stuff like that, social engineering, actual architectural engineering, things like that. And he had talked about creating a system that's basically switching from a consumer-based society to a production-based society, and how like you actually do have the resources to have robots and machines do a lot of the work for you. And we were talking about this earlier, basically like freeing up the human to actually have some free time to
to do things that are valuable to us.
Exactly. And that's what his whole society was based on a production-based society where it frees humans up to be able to do that kind of stuff. It's pretty interesting. Check it out. It's called Project Venus.
Well, the Rancho Book says that the angels of progress are sitting on the scientists' shoulders, just as the evil ones are sitting on the government. But they're trying to progress our society quickly, because that's the only way we can take care of everybody. And sooner or later, we've got to start treating everybody equal and taking care of everybody on the planet equally. When we'll start that, I'm not sure, but.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while. I mean, what'd you say? It was gonna be like at least another 1,000 years before.
Yeah, but it's been almost 100 years since the Rancho Book was written, so maybe it's only 900 years. We have to wait.
Well, at least it's not that far away, right?
Yeah, well, it's coming, and the Rancho Book discusses the worlds as they progress, so you can go in and actually read how things are on the more advanced worlds. It said when the more advanced worlds go to heaven, they don't even really notice a difference except they have a new body. It said when we go, we're going to definitely notice a difference.
Yeah. Can these higher world beings come to our world? Can they go down?
Our world is a study world. The fact that Jesus came here, this is the only world he'll bestow himself on. We have an archangel divisional headquarters here. Our world is really popular now for study. When people come to our universe, beings find out about our world, they want to come there and study. So there was a bunch of them studying when Jesus was here. After the resurrection, he went up and talked to them, and I guess taught them.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. So I mean that kind of that plays in, right?
That makes
you have these higher beings that are able to come here and visit us whenever they want to.
Whenever they
Yeah,
want. And
most of them are invisible. If they're a spirit being, we don't see them, and
Right.
but they're here hundreds and thousands of at a time are studying our planet. And you'll have the same opportunity to go to different planets and study them. I wished I could see them. I invite them in to stay at my house all the time, but I don't know if they have a nicer place or.
well, they're invisible, right? I mean,
I know.
You could just say they're here, right?
That's why. Well,
but then you couldn't go to the Roswell Museum because then you would be the crazy person because now you've got.
Yeah, well, I'm always the crazy person. So
when your house is full of invisible,
some people think I'm crazy. The others, I just try to keep guessing.
That's the fun part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, when your house is full of invisible friends, you can order as many pizzas as you want. You could just, tell the pizza delivery guy, hey, we wanted all the toppings.
Well, unfortunately, I can't eat wheat, so I can't eat pizzas anymore.
Oh,
no, you got to have cauliflower
I
pizza.
wish you wouldn't have to brought that up.
Oh, man. Somebody was wanting to know if they talk about Enoch at all in, I guess, in the Urantia book. Is he discussed?
You mean someone that's been castrated?
I think so. Yeah, like the Book of Enoch. You've heard the Book of Enoch?
Well, it does mention it. It says that Jesus studied a book purportedly written by him. So there was something that existed, and Jesus read it, and he got part of his. That's where he got the idea of calling himself the Son of Man and the Son of God. Came from apparently that book.
Interesting.
Whoa.
Interesting. I think what was Enoch? He was Moses' grandfather or something?
Well, no, actually he was the first person to do what I told you to ascend through a primary ascension. It's called sun seized. He fused with the Father at that moment. So he was on down the line. The first humans were almost 1 million years ago. Adam and Eve were 38,000 years ago. The story got all confused in the Old Testament about Adam and Eve being the first people, but even the Old Testament says, and Cain went to the land of Nod. Well, if they were the first person, how could there be a land of Nod already?
Right.
And so that's all explained. Paper 74, section 8 tells about the creation myth and how it arrived. Basically, it was simple people, and the teachers were trying to keep things simple, so they didn't really try to teach past Adam and Eve, and then it got to be a myth, and then it got to be the truth, and then it got to be. And well, what happened was it got what was it? Ptolemy, when he was in the library at Alexandria, someone told him that all this stuff was real, and so he had it converted into Greek, and then from that time on, it became part of the Bible and part of reality. But it was considered a myth by the people that at the time.
Damn,
that's interesting.
And all through history, humans have known about evolution. It was only a few hundred years there, really, that creationism was kind of taught. Even then, the natives think they came from a coyote or a beaver. It was all taught through time. Humans recognized the progressive evolution of beings.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Ooh. So when are you buying your copy of the Rancho Book?
Tonight, dude.
Here's what I do is I give so many away that I go to the Amazon and then buy the used ones. There's always a bunch of used ones in the mix.
I love that. There's
good idea.
There's used ones, like people read them and then pay it
forward.
Well,
a lot of them are given away. A lot of them I get have never been opened, and some have a few marks in them. Some have written, but it's a really hard book. And if you read the foreword first, it's really discouraging. It's so hard. I recommend people don't read the foreword until you've read the book 2 or 3 times, and then go back and try to. They introduced so many new concepts at one time that have never occurred to any mortal on the planet, that I don't think any mortal is capable of understanding it right off the bat. But maybe in 100 years or 200 years. But
so the forward is maybe just like too much at once.
Yeah. Can I read you one little paragraph?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Please.
this is insane to me, and I've come to some amount of understanding of it, but I wouldn't want to try to teach it to anybody.
It's a wild statement.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Always remember, potential infinity is absolute and inseparable from eternity. Actual infinity in time can never be anything but partial and must therefore be non-absolute. Neither can infinity of actual personality be absolute except in unqualified deity. And it is the differential of infinity potential and the unqualified absolute and the deity absolute that eternalizes the universal absolute, thereby making it cosmically possible to have material universes in space and spiritually possible to have finite personalities in time.
I think I understood that.
Well, it's true. And you kind of need to know what the unqualified absolute is, which is essentially everything that hasn't happened. The qualified absolute is those things that have happened in the reality, and the unqualified absolute is all the potential. The qualified is the actual, and the unqualified is the potential of things that can't happen. So there's a tension that exists between that and all these material and spiritual realities.
It's like a really efficient way of saying like I've always been curious about the idea of truth itself. Like, how do you define truth?
Yeah, well, there's papers on truth.
Yeah. Okay. What?
Yeah. that whole thing that he read was like, it kind of said to me like, hey, whatever you think exists, and whatever you can't even conceive, trust me, it's there.
It's existed. Yeah.
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 It either did or it will.
See how that would turn off people. I mean, just that one thing. I mean, unless you're a philosopher, unless you're willing to sit and consider it, that's just a turn off to most people.
Yeah. Well, I definitely see why you said read it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Because
that's why I feel like I understood it a little better just by talking to you for the past, couple hours. Like I grabbed onto a couple of things. When you hear something, you kind of can get it. I mean, yeah. I don't fully understand that passage, but I'm like open to it now. I'm almost
at Pentecost, Jesus gave us the new teacher, and it's called the Spirit of Truth. And so you have within you, that's the way Jesus inhabits you right now, is you have this ability to discern the truth when it's given to you. And that's why you rejected things in the Bible and rejected things in the religions because you didn't perceive the truth in it. But if I read you the truth, you're going to perceive it and you're going to accept it. And I think the more you read the Urantia Book, the more truth you'll find. And right now, truth is relative to us. We're only partial beings, only partial. So in any one realm of God's creation, the truth is relative at that time to those people in relation to other peoples and in the central universe.
Right.
Dude.
Well, there's 2,100 pages of things to discuss in there.
Dude. Mike, I'm so glad that we met you, my friend. This has been fantastic, dude.
Yeah.
I have thoroughly enjoyed. I feel like we're kind of getting towards the end of our time here, man. But dude, I'm so glad we met you, man. Thank you so much for being on.
This has been awesome.
Well, there's plenty more. Anytime you want to discuss it more.
Hey, man.
And you really, if you're one of your guests. Fades out on you and doesn't show up, you could call me about any time. I don't need any
dude.
That would be totally awesome because I mean you just said there's a lot of pages in there, and I'm definitely gonna dive into this a little bit more and do a little bit more research. And I mean, we're definitely going to have you back on again. So that way you can kind of hold our hand a little bit and walk us through this, man, because you're definitely an expert. I mean, you were quoting stuff and didn't even have to read it most of the time. So that was pretty
Well, I spent a lot of time studying it. I know a lot of people with a lot of problems. I spend a lot of time trying to analyze their situation. What lesson do they need? And then my job on Earth is to uplift the spirituality of the planet and its people. So I work on planetary problems all the time too, of how do I solve planetary problems.
Definitely.
So I have to study it.
Absolutely.
Dude, yes.
And for everybody listening, man, I mean, whether you believe it or you don't believe it, it seems like everybody in the chat was kind of on board. Like, hey, that's pretty cool. But like I'm saying, whether you believe it or you don't believe
spirit
it,
of truth.
It sounds like something that it's worth your time to at least go and check it out, right? Just go check it out. See if it's for you. If it's not, then it's not. If it is, then awesome.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
And for those that want to start, maybe this book it's very small and thick. You can read it in one afternoon, and it's going to give you a lot of information, and you'll kind of discern yourself if you think it's true.
Yeah.
The author says, that no human could have the imagination, and he certainly didn't have that imagination. And they talk about things that I'm probably the only person on the planet have thought about. I know some of the books were written, I think, specifically for me because they corrected mistakes that I had and then updated information that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the time is now. Let's let the world know about the Urantia Book. And is this podcast available all the time? Can other people come and look at it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It will. Yeah. It's on YouTube right now. So we do the show live on YouTube, and then I'll update. We upload the podcast to all the platforms, Spotify, iTunes, usually the night of or tomorrow morning. So
if one of my friends wanted to watch it later, they could.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. Yeah. And dude, yeah.
Well, let's change the world, guys. Let's make that spiritual world we all want, where we get along and take care of each other, and we meet the aliens and we get to ride in their ship, and that's the world I want.
That sounds like the coolest world possible. I think that's what we all want. We just want to meet some dang aliens and be cool with each other, right? You gotta.
I got to tell you that I have great faith in the young people. My generation has screwed things up royally, but the younger generation is much more spiritual. They're much less, they don't bother. They don't worry about the races. They're just better humans. We're evolving better into better beings. And so I have a lot of faith in you guys. It's going to get better. And my generation is going to die off pretty soon. So
well, there's still great people in your generation, man. I mean, you got a lot of information. So
don't go anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, we got, we have to learn, from somebody. So as long as there's people like you around, and there's people like us that are willing to keep an open mind. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we can definitely learn from your generation, from certain people for sure.
Thank you, Tammy.
Yeah. Tammy's pretty awesome. She's usually in the chat every Thursday. So, but Mike, if there's let everybody know where they can find you again, like on YouTube or anything like that, so that way people can go check you out.
I just started a YouTube channel. I spent my life in computers. I was considered a computer genius back in the 70s and 80s, but it got so boring to me. But I just don't like I don't like to do anything on computers anymore. So, and so I kind of did this. And anyway, I hope you understand that I'm not really thrilled.
Oh, dude, everything worked out perfectly. You have this Chromebook, man. It just, dude, you look great. You sound great. So I'm glad it all worked out, man.
It's worked good on my end. I've got a speaker here and I can hear everything well. And so it was a good experience for me. And if I can talk about the Rancho Book, if we can just get more people to know it, there's the answer book. We can solve all of our problems if everybody will just start working on the same page.
Yeah, just check it out. What's your YouTube channel called?
Gravionic garden.
Gravionic Garden.
The Garden of Eden. Yeah, the Garden of Eden failed, and there was a second garden that failed. So the Gravionic Garden is designed to eventually start up a new Garden of Eden.
Oh wow!
There ought to be a place for these people to meet, where the Machiaventia is going to come back at some point. We ought to be right now creating a place where we study the Urantia Book, where we bring the world's religions together, and seek for unity of thought without uniformity of belief. We don't all have to believe the same thing. We just need to agree on a unity that we believe in the same God and we work for the same things. So that's all the kind of things that I think can happen and that we need to work for.
Absolutely. Oh man,
I like that, man. That's a good message. You know?
Hey, email me the YouTube link. I'm trying to search for it here. Gravionic Garden.
Gravionic Garden, one word is the way did you find it? My friends found it. Gravionic Garden.
Gravionic
Gravionic Garden.
Nope. That's not it.
So I'm new to YouTube.
It may be kind of low.
I'm bored with computers, but I've put an ad in Facebook. A friend I has looking for somebody to teach me YouTube, how I can, because I have a whole number of videos I want to produce, a bunch on UFOs, and a number of subjects.
Well, hey, let's keep in contact because we'll promote your stuff, man. If you put out a video,
okay,
we'll
and I probably sent out 30 or 40 letters, and you're the only ones that answered me.
Oh man! Well, hey, I'm glad we were able to have you on. You know, the other 29, 39 people, they missed out.
They missed out bad
because this was fun.
Yeah,
I had a great time.
Seriously.
Yeah, well, me too. I love the truth and love talking about it.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, we love you, man, and thank you so much for joining tonight. Hey, we're gonna keep in contact. I'm gonna post your YouTube channel to this video, so if anybody finds it, they'll have that link, and then we'll post it on our stuff so people can find you. And dude, we'll be in touch soon, and we'd love to have you back on.
Well, as soon as I learn YouTube, I'll be posting a bunch more videos.
Okay.
I tried to post some from my phone, but they went to micro mics. You might try looking for that one.
Okay, cool, man.
Check that out too.
We'll figure it out. All right,
Okay.
man. All right, have a good night,
Hey, man.
Yeah,
Take it
you
easy.
too. Thank you very much.
Yes,
all right,
sir.
thank you.
And so what?
Oh, we brought you back in. I cut
Do
you
I
off.
just end this?
Oh yeah, you can
Do I just
exit.
close the window?
Sure, yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
that'll
no
work,
worries.
man.
Peace,
Okay,
man.
thanks.
All right, bye. Yeah,
Dude, he was so cool.
I loved it so much.
That was a lot of fun. Like I love the just the positive attitude and just the kind of just that love feeling, man, surrounding the whole thing, the whole topic. He had a lot of crazy shit happened to him that sucks, like with his meteorite and stuff, and for him to be able to keep such a positive attitude about everything was pretty awesome.
Right.
I really enjoyed that. That was super, super cool. So everybody go check him out. Go check out his YouTube stuff. Like he said, he's going to be posting a lot more stuff coming up pretty soon once he learns how to use some YouTube. I'm sure there's only going to be interesting stuff coming from that direction.
Yeah,
right?
dude. Yeah, we're you guys are definitely gonna hear again from Mike in the future, dude. That was awesome. But yeah, dude. Yeah, do we have any sponsors we want to talk about before we? Oh, guys, if you're not subscribed to our channel, please hit the subscribe button because
Click it.
just click the button.
It's right.
Click the
There or something.
button. Because you'll get notified next time we go live. Because we're pretty random. You never know when we're gonna go live. So
Usually Thursday.
You never know. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah,
for
Dr.
everybody.
Argon. It was pretty interesting perspectives and theories for sure, right? And like we were talking about, dude, how you just like hit a wall sometimes on like what you're trying to think about. You're trying to like kind of think outside that box of stuff that you learned before. And just hearing like another perspective, another angle at the whole thing is just cool because it opens up a whole new box of information that you can kind of like play with,
yeah,
and like put pieces together, right?
Dude, I am like constantly on the search for new puzzle pieces, dude. It's like I have this million. It started out as a 100-piece puzzle set, and I got to the 99th piece, and I was missing that 100th piece. And as I looked under the table, I found 1,000 more pieces. Every time that happens, man, and this was like such great timing. Great timing because definitely have been hitting that wall recently. Like I kind of went through this journey of like spirituality stuff, dude, and it only got so far where I was like kind of missing that inspiration, that overwhelming thing of like, oh, I'm figuring stuff out. It's become so much of late. Like I'm just hearing the same stuff over and over again, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, that was so refreshing. Just I'm so interested. I want to read a book.
Yeah, it's I'm definitely gonna, and dude, like I said, like it's something that I've known about for a while, and I periodically pop in on it and like watch a couple videos, read some articles, and read some stuff, and like I always, every time I watch something or read something from the Urantia book, I always walk away with like a new perspective, like, oh, that's pretty interesting. Like, you know, and like I said, like before we even started the show, is like, you know, a lot of stuff I just kind of take with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But like this whole thing was pretty cool just because of, you know, I don't know. It really shakes your reality, but it doesn't like shake you out of your current reality. Like it seems to like take the reality that you know and mix it up a little bit. And excite you about something new.
Yeah,
you know,
it's less of like a hindrance or conflict. It's more of a catalyst. It's like
right.
It's a smooth transition. It's not like, oh, everything that I've learned is wrong. It's not necessarily saying that.
Even though it is right. But it still uses terminology and things that you're familiar with.
Yes.
So it doesn't completely throw you off. It really shifts. It shifts your way of thinking.
Yeah, dude.
You know?
Oh, yeah. Good point. Like it's not like it's still using stuff that we know, and we can have that language barrier. There's no language barrier. It's not like it's in a different, well, obviously, but it's not bringing in totally different ideas. It's just tweaking it. Like, hey, so you know that one thing? It's a little different than what you've been told. And dude, I just love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know? And then it like perfectly falls into place. Like it makes sense, dude. Woo, dude.
And it was cool how like every question that like we possibly had, it's like, oh, that's page 145, right?
Like, off of the dome, like, just remembered it.
I know everything. And I love that there's like an index that you can just be like, is there oral sex in higher dimensions? You know? And you can literally find something about it. Like that's hilarious. Like just the Sumerians. Oh, well, there's papers on the Sumerians.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, what about this Enoch guy? Well, it talks about it in this one spot. Or like every question that anybody had in the chat, there was like a paper for it.
Yeah.
You know,
I really try to throw out as many ideas as were coming to me in the chat. You guys, thanks for commenting questions. That was awesome. The whole interactive nature of it. But like everything we threw at him was like, yep. Well, and what I appreciate is he wasn't coming from an aspect of Mike wasn't coming from an perspective of, oh, I know the answer. It's more like, well, here's what's in this book, and I've been studying this for years, and this is what I know about what. I just love that a lot of people that kind of get into this scenario or come from a place of knowledge or experience. Often people have like this demeanor of oh, well, I know what's best. And
right,
dude, Mike just had like a good vibe about him, man.
Yeah.
Like
Tammy said Mike could be a monthly regular. Huh?
Yeah. I'm thinking so.
Yeah, Mike was cool, man. Everybody dug Mike.
Yeah, dude.
You know? That was great, man.
Super interesting, man. It's awesome.
Ben and Joe, how old are you? How old are you, dude?
Dude, how old are you, bro?
How old are you?
Dude. How old am I in my mind?
I'm 33.
In my mind or in my out of my body?
Oh, well, in my mind, I'm 63. But
dude, I think in my mind I'm 17, 18 years old. But
I say I'm 63 because, like, I don't know, like,
yeah, I know you're 63 for sure.
I have like this grumpy old man mentality a lot of times.
Yeah.
And sometimes I want to take naps.
Yeah, you're
And
definitely.
then I get grumpy after my nap. I'm always wondering where dinner's at.
So hungry and sleepy. Yeah, you're 2 years old. I'm 30. I just turned 32, so that was my birthday was June 28th. So you're only 1 year apart from me right now.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty cool. Until I have my birthday, and then I'm 2 years.
But that's not even like for a while, dude. So like we're really close in age. I'm almost as old as you, dude.
Yeah, you're right.
Remember that was like the mark, like that was the benchmark of like being cool. Is like how old you were. Like,
oh yeah,
like
you're like
so. My birthday's.
I'm 13. And what are you, like 11?
Yeah,
you're only 11. I'm 13.
What do you still wear diapers, dude?
That's why I'm smarter, because my mom says she's older than me, and that's why she's smarter than me. So technically, I'm older than you. I'm smarter than you. I'm 13.
Yeah, dude. Well, shit, dude. Man, that was awesome. Well, I don't want to step on any. We got Dave Spaced Out Radio's coming up on. Y'all check out him on Spaced Out Radio. The YouTube channel starts at 11. Let's see what we got. He always shows us love, so I always want to show him love too, man.
That's right.
I'm not sure what the guest is, but he's always got somebody good. He had Geraldine on the other night, man. It was like my personal therapy, dude. It was great. It was like,
yeah, Geraldine is like she always relaxes me and puts me in like a positive mood. Yeah. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't suck at life.
Yeah,
I'm just experiencing normal human stuff.
Right. It does. Yeah.
She always makes me feel good.
I felt great the whole time. And also like, it was like this, peaks and valleys of like, oh, I definitely do that thing. Boom. That's where my mind goes. And then pick you back up and say, hey, don't worry about it. Hey, don't worry. That was nice. That was good. Something
about those ladies, Vivian, Samantha, and her, man.
Did you catch the Space Out Radio with Samantha and
no, but it's downloaded. I have it downloaded.
It's really good.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's in my list. Like I have like on YouTube on my phone, I download stuff and then like I have a list. And so each podcast is like an hour and a half to 2 hours long. So I just try and make my way through the list as I go through the week. I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm about to. It's like 2 more away.
Hell yeah. That's how you beat the system. You don't have to use your data plan.
Yeah, dude.
You just download it.
Exactly.
I get it.
Anytime there's Wi-Fi, anytime I'm in Home Depot, instead of doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm downloading YouTube videos.
You've got like the Wi-Fi passwords for all the Home Depots.
And if my boss is listening, I'm just kidding.
Nobody we know listens to our show anyway.
Nobody we know.
Even our like close friends don't even listen to our show.
I know. But we have an amazing group of listeners, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The people that have come on board and like it's really funny, man, because like we recognize so many people. You know,
yeah, it's beginning to be really fun, like seeing the people that show up. Like, oh my gosh, you guys, we're creating a little family here. It's so fun to see. Yeah,
definitely.
Like the things that you guys add to the comment section and questions, like that makes that's making the show. Like you guys are just as much a part of this as we are. So man, it's awesome. So keep coming back, you guys.
Definitely,
and be excellent to each other.
Be excellent to each other.
Hell yeah. Well, with that, man.
But this has been another episode of UFO Garage. We'll talk to y'all next time. Take it easy.
Peace.